Hello, cats and kittens. How are you doing? And welcome to an election night live stream. I doubt any of us will forget. I am the host of this evening's stream, the winner of the New York City mayoral race, Curtis Sliwa. Yes, I am repurposing my Halloween costume because the real victor of this evening is our favorite spoiler candidate, Curtis Sliwa, who it seems, according to polls from at least earlier today, was slated to get about 17% of the vote. Voters that were more likely to vote for Andrew Cuomo than for Zohran Mamdani, thus really presenting himself as someone who deserves all of us to doff our caps to him, not for his substantive politics, of course, though you might be a fan of his love of cats, but for the role that he played in this particular election. Now, as you know, we are shortly going to be joined by Amanda Seales. She's going to stick around with us as we watch how people are reacting, overreacting to the presumed win of Zohran Mamdani. But before she arrives, I want to set up a little bit of what's been going on in the zeitgeist, perhaps provoked by the popularity of Zohran and the inevitability of his win. There have been a slate of really insane articles over the last few days in which people have, centrists, I should say more specifically, have been desperate to reclaim narrative control. We saw this emerge after the 2024 election in the form of the abundists, the folks who were presenting the alternative to the Joe Biden, Kamala Harris brand of politics as a sort of a rebranded neoliberalism, the Abundance book by Ezra Klein and sorry, just checking on Amanda, by Ezra Klein, who has also accompanied the book along with Alex Thompson. Sorry, not Alex Thompson, Derek Thompson. Sorry, wrong Thompson. With a series of articles in the New York Times about why centrism is the way to go. One of them most recently on November 2nd is titled, "This is the Way You Beat Trump and Trumpism." Hold on to your hats. You'll never guess. Hold on to your red berets, if you will. You'll never guess what his prescription is. The article starts, inside the Democratic Party and its back rooms and its group chats, its conferences and its online flame wars, an increasingly bitter debate has taken hold over what the party needs to become to beat back Trumpism. Does it need to be more populist, more moderate, more socialist, embrace the abundance agenda, produce more vertical video? The answer is yes. Yes to all of it, but to none of it in particular. The Democratic Party does not need to choose one thing. It needs to choose to be more things. And it will not surprise you to learn that some of the more things he encourages Democrats to embrace are abandoning constituency groups, including pro-choice groups, trans folks, and of course, not full-throatedly embracing the sort of economic populism that pulls really big, like Medicare for all, taxing the rich, or minimum wage raise. These things take a backseat to much more milquetoast prescriptions. Not to be left out, there is a big piece in New York Magazine, which generally speaking is one of the better outlets in terms of advancing progressive politics. This piece, written by Simon Van Zuylen-Wood, is titled "Socialism or Abundance? Two Visions Fight for the Democratic Party's Soul" as it searches for purpose, direction, and a modicum of popularity. This piece begins thusly, and I see Amanda is in the room, and we're going to bring her on in just 1 second. But I think this is important to understand the broader context of this election tonight and why so many people are melting down and what the stakes of an election where a candidate wins on a economic populist agenda without running away from the fact that he's a democratic socialist really means for the brand of centrist politics that's been foisted on our country for the last 40 years or so. This one starts thusly. Since last November's election defeat, the Democratic Party has been subject to an endless battery of postmortems, and a shadow primary is already being fought over who's got the formula to bring it back to life. Michigan Senator Elissa Slotkin characterized the party's image as weak and woke and in need of alpha energy. Pete Buttigieg grew a beard and blasted DEI-style training as something out of Portlandia. Not to be outdone on the regular Joe front, Arizona Senator Ruben Gallego explained that every Latino man wants a big truck. Excuse me, a big ass truck. Massachusetts Congressman Jake Auchincloss countered that such gestures are derivative, quote, Diet Coke populism and won't beat Trump at his own game, while California Governor Gavin Newsom has overtly been trying to beat Trump at his own game with a new keyboard warrior persona that speaks in all caps. The article goes on to say that socialism, as evidenced by the popularity of both Zohran Mamdani and the Bernie AOC oligarchy rallies, seems to show some hope. But of course, the abundance faction also is putting forth their own brand of politics. And this article debates whether or not one or the other is more likely to succeed. Of course, tonight counts a big win in the socialism column. Here to discuss that and also talk about her new book, a new project that she's been working on and that will premiere in just a few days on November 8th, is the one and only activist, comedian, and very warm, delightful, and funny woman, Amanda Seales. Welcome, Amanda. Amanda, why is it that I can't hear you? Oh, okay. Your mic's not muted on my end. Okay, she's going to go up back and come back in. No worries there. Sometimes these things happen.
It's an annoying day.
Oh, there you go. There you go. No worries at all.
My roadcaster is being done. This is just an annoying day. It's an annoying day. I'm not delightful today. I'm not warm. Bianca, I was here at 7. I was here at 6:58. You sent me the wrong link, baby.
I know.
So I was sitting in a live you did the other day, and I looked up and I was like, that says 3 hours. She ain't been sitting on there for 3 hours.
You're completely right. You're completely right. That was completely on me.
You sent me. So you thought you hadn't sent me the link, but you had.
Okay,
you second guessed yourself. I can't hear anything you're saying, just so you know.
Wait, you can't.
I'm about to be able to hear what you're saying. I had to reboot my entire system.
Okay. The audience, you guys can hear me though, right?
I'm getting attacked by the Zionists today. I'm just annoyed.
Wait, talk to us about what's been going on. We texted about it briefly, and I saw you did a story about it on Instagram. You can hear me now?
Yep.
Okay. Help us understand, because this also is important context for folks who might not be as familiar with you, who didn't listen to you when you were on Bad Faith last time, who don't have any context for how the establishment sort of media sphere has punished you, and sort of Hollywood has punished you for your advocacy for Palestine. What's been going on? What's been going on with the Zionist attacks today?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Yes.
Okay. So I am heading out to share my book with the people. I haven't been on the road in quite some time because of the Zionists, because last year, let's see. So it all started in March of last year, where there was this concerted, coordinated effort to discredit me by calling me unlikable. So this was all Black media sites.
Yeah, I remember.
I mean, I have to laugh because it's just which is why I love that you're the warm, delightful.
Look, being warm and delightful doesn't mean you always have to have a big, permanent smile on your face.
Well, it also means that it doesn't mean that you put up with nonsense either.
Exactly.
Right. And that's what a lot of people really want. They just want you to be amenable to whatever they are dishing you. And you're just yeah, I'm not really for that. I don't feel like there has to be any reason for me to go along with nonsense if it's nonsense.
Right.
So that being said, I said, okay, I'm going to keep pushing forward. They tried to discredit me and, do all this nonsense, but okay, whatever. And then I said, okay, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go on Shannon Sharp's show. And that was when that was like a thing to do. I know it sounds crazy, y'all. I know, but it was at a time. So I went on
this was pre him accidentally creating a little mini porno film.
You know what's funny is that was not accidental. I don't believe that. Like, no one's phone is just on like that. Like, let's keep it a buck, y'all. Like, what are we talking about?
Wait. For those who don't know what happened,
please give them context.
Okay, so this is my recollection of it. Tell me if I get any of the facts wrong. Basically, he started an Instagram live where it became clear that his phone, while you couldn't see what was happening, you could hear basically him having sex with somebody.
In what world? I do Instagram live a lot. And there ain't no accidental start to an Instagram live. It asks you like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I feel like they've considered that. There's a contingency. You got to press this and you got to press this and you got to press this.
Right. Okay. So he, I guess his response to it when it happened was like, this was an accident. He didn't want to lose jobs and all those kinds of things. He's a former football player and is, I guess,
I don't believe none of that. I think that he was literally just doing that to try to curtail what he knew was coming down, which was that this woman was going to accuse him of mistreatment. And so that was an attempt to demonstrate, look, it's not mistreatment, whatever. I don't care. To be quite honest, like, she was 19. Like, what are you doing?
Oh, really? And he's got to be close to 60.
I love that you looked at your watch.
Sorry, I just got it.
Whatever it was perfect timing. He's got to be close to 60. Right? So yes, but nonetheless, the point of me bringing it up was because I went on the show and then that kind of kept me unintentionally in like the zeitgeist of things. And then shortly there, but I was also like about to go on tour for what I had named the Unlikable Tour. So I was doing stand-up. So I went on the quote unquote Unlikable Tour. And then the Zionists started calling the venues that I was performing at and trying to get them to cancel my shows, which they successfully did at some venues. There was like a 2,000 email campaign in Detroit. They had a truck. I've told you this story, I think, before, that they had a truck with my name on the side, with my face on the side that said Amanda Seales, the Jew hater. I am not.
Of course.
We always have to say it.
I know.
It's annoying, but it is what it is. So long story short, their goal is to take your livelihood from you. That is because they only think, because it's a limited, Zionists have a very limited mindset, right? Like, their only version of humanity is what they decide is human. And their only concept of humanity is transactional. It's a very, very myopic mindset. And so they're like, oh, that's what we'll do. We'll just take money from her. And so I said, oh, I'll just do free shows. So I started doing this one-woman show called What Would the Ancestors Say? And first we started doing a couple shows that were actually still ticketed, but we did them at venues that were very much down with, like, we're not going to let them cancel the show, etc. Like, we understand the movement. And then I started doing the show at the People's Forum for free here in New York City. And I had a book at Simon & Schuster. I had a memoir at Simon & Schuster that I decided to buy back from them when my editor showed that she was shady and also had some Zionist rhetoric going on. And then they wanted me to cut 75,000 words from my 150,000 word book because they said my contract was only for 75,000 words. And it was a lot going on with that. But I say all of that to say that in this time period, I also have just been unrelenting in my support of Palestine, in my support of in my Antifa, in my Antifa. And I really haven't allowed for it to dull I'm not afraid of them. And I think that's really what it boils down to. They want to beat you back. So now I'm headed out I decided to actually write What Would the Ancestors Say? After performing it on stage, I decided that it did. Oh, I sent you the book.
I pulled this off the internet. You sent me the tour dates, and I'm trying to figure out.
Book earlier today. Yeah. I sent you the image.
Yeah, you did. Is this not it?
That's a flyer. Okay, but that's not the book.
Look, you're gonna have to be patient with me, Amanda, because I don't have a producer. I'm doing all of this while trying to listen and engage.
I do the same thing every Wednesday at 10 a.m. Eastern, y'all. So make sure you watch Views from Amanda Land.
I am trying to figure out how to get the image that you sent me into a format that this site will acknowledge and allow me to bring up. But I'm yes, it is not easy. Please let's not have a whole conversation about it. But I'm trying to do that while you're talking. I promise. I'm trying so hard. But until
I can also help you is what I'm saying.
No, go ahead. I want you to keep talking because I don't want I don't want to bore everybody with the background noise, but I promise that I'm trying. But go ahead.
I don't think you're not trying, but you are getting irritated though. And I'm really just trying to tell you because
no. Come on. Go ahead and keep telling them about what's going on. I saw that you're live today about the about what's going on with your tour dates. And about how they're trying to buy up the free tickets on not buy up, but occupy the space of all the free tickets on your tour dates.
Well, I learned today that I guess there's an there's a element of Reddit that I guess is the Zionist Reddit, and they're on there having a Zio blast and basically reserving because the book events are free, so they're on there reserving all of the tickets so that I'll have an empty room. However, the reality is that y'all can show up. I mean, it's not tickets. I am not selling tickets, so feel free to show up. You can go to amandaseals.com and you can come right there. And I'll be in San Diego on Wednesday. I will be in Seattle on the 10th. I will be in Detroit on the 11th. And I will be in Chicago on the 12th. So, feel free to show up. And I think it's very, first of all, people here are like, you came off irritated. I came on the live irritated. I am irritated. I am in a state of irritation right now. That's what I don't think y'all understand. Like, it's not Brianna irritating me. I am irritated. I've got fucking Zionists constantly trying to ruin my life while aren't you all busy enough genociding an entire people? Yeah. Multiple peoples. So I am irritated. Bye, Nicholas Turner.
Speaking of Amanda, did you catch any of the meltdown from Debra, what's her name from
Will and Grace?
Yeah. Debra Messing. How could I forget Messing with the messy last name? Apparently people were screen grabbing it. She had 100 dashes in her Instagram story melting down.
About what?
Today. About Zohran Mamdani.
What? At this point, I'm just like, they're so psychotic.
It's really true. So I'll pull it up too. I'll pull this up too. But one of the ones that made it over to the Twitter sphere was a truly unconscionable screen grab in which she was basically inveighing about how Islam is a categorically inferior religion that incentivizes people to lie as opposed to Christianity and Judaism.
What?
And she is not being canceled by Hollywood.
No.
Yep. Here, I'm going to pull it up.
Because Hollywood is Zionists. That's what a lot of people don't actually understand. Hollywood itself is run by Zionists. And some people in the past would say Hollywood is run by Jewish people. And that's just not accurate because it's a specific politic that's running the actual the actual systems that we are watching.
Yeah, here are two things that she put out on her Instagram and has since deleted. One is this graphic. I hadn't seen this one before. Titled "Things We Don't See Jews Doing: Flying planes into buildings, trying to dominate the world."
Really? That we don't see them doing that?
I mean, girl, it's like she's baiting me.
It's always the weed. It's all the oh my God. So real quick though, I was at my storage unit earlier and I'm wearing a shirt that says Israel is a settler state. And there was this like Finnish from Finland man who was in like the unit next to me. And so he had these like two little lamps on the ground. And I was very taken by the lamps. And so I was just making conversation. I was like, oh, I really like your lamps. And but he was like distracted. And he was like, oh, I don't know how to do a Finnish accent. So sorry if it sounds French. So he's like, but you are wearing a beret. So I feel like that's also why it sounds French. And so he's like, the lamps. Oh, yes, the lamps. And I could feel that he was like trying to like get something out. And finally he was like, oh, you're wearing a shirt for Israel. Now, these are the moments where you're like, do I feel like having a revolution up in the storage unit today? And the answer is yes. And
Comrade Steele said at all times,
always on in something. And so I said, this is not an Israel shirt. You see what this shirt says? And then he's reading it and he's like, oh, that is it. I said, this is a pro-Palestine shirt. This is a free Palestine shirt. That's what this shirt is. I also knew there was cameras. So if he was going to try and get frisky, my dog was there with me. Literally, my dog, Jordy, was there. So I Jordy was going to do his thing. So then I was like, and then, so there's always that moment, right? Where you're not sure where it's going to go. And he was like, yes. I converted to Judaism in my last marriage. Now I'm Drusian. I'm just giving you various accents. None of them Scandinavian.
Hey, close enough. They share a border.
And then he was like, I converted to Judaism in my last marriage. He was like, and now I feel bad. Like I don't want to be a Jew anymore. And I said to him, it's not about being Jewish. Yeah. It's about being Zionist.
Yeah.
That's specifically what it's about. And he was like, you're right. And I was like, because we must understand that the folks that are using Judaism in their effort to be Zionists are absolutely not Jewish. They are completely disrespecting the actual faith. And he was like, exactly. You see what's going on? It is terrible what's going on. And they're using this. And he was like, Israel shouldn't even exist. And I was like, man, brother, you met the right one in this storage unit.
Oh, I love that, Amanda. You thought it was about to be a conflict, but you gave him
because I know where I live. And that's what he said. That's what he said when he was leaving. He was like, I'm giving you my card because it's so nice to be able to have this conversation.
Yeah.
And not just have it here. And I was like, yeah, anytime, finish, brother. Anytime.
Well, God bless him, because I thought the story was going to go in a different way. Because they'd say what, like, there's no one as zealous as the convert. There's no one as faithful as about how people who come to a faith.
Oh yes. Ones. Like they go the hardest. Right? Yeah. Like
Charlotte on Sex and the City. But I really love the ending to the story, because Debra Messing is one. I gotta say, I mean, this whole thing, number 5, forcing young girls to marry old men, like, has Seinfeld entered the chat?
I was like, hello, Shoshana.
Has Woody Allen entered the chat? Like, hello. What are we doing? Like,
it's just nonsense.
This is
has Epstein entered the chat?
Right. Like, don't make us do this, Debbie.
Do it.
Okay, and then this is
Did you call her Debbie?
Circulating.
Did you call her Debbie? Debs.
Deborah. This is the one that was really taking people out earlier today. She says, in Judaism and Christianity, we are commanded to speak the truth. In Islam, they are commanded to lie if it means spreading Islam. Do not disregard the fundamental ideological difference. Now take a look at Mamdani. Apply that basic rule. Listen to his words, then watch his actions. He's revealing their goal, mass conversion. These two opposing civilizations cannot exist. This is a woman in good standing.
Right.
In her professional milieu.
Right. Nice use of milieu. Nice use of milieu. I appreciate it. I just, you always have the good words too. I love a vocab.
I mean, but like, this is, I appreciate it. Thank you. But this is honestly nuts. And I do feel like, my audience knows that I've I've been cautiously optimistic about Zohran Mamdani. I have given a lot of space to criticisms of certain retrenchments of his in the course of this campaign. I have criticized his unwillingness to stand behind his criticisms of the NYPD as racist, the same way that he stood behind his commitments to Palestine.
Yes.
And I have also had a little bit of an eye twitch about some softening of language around the arresting of Netanyahu and the like. Like, I've seen it all, and we'll have more time to talk about that later in the show if people want to talk about that. But it's stuff like this with Debra Messing and the entire billionaire class coming down on Mamdani that does make this day feel momentous, even if it's not about advancing the left's broader, more revolutionary and less reformist goals. It certainly is a deadly blow to what up until this point has been complete ideological, a demand for complete ideological commitment to Zionism in the public sphere. That those days are over. When a Muslim man wins the race for mayor of New York after soundly winning the primary and whooping a former governor of New York, Andrew Cuomo, who had all the name recognition, who himself is a Nepo baby, who has billionaires backing him up to the hilt. And who was the governor? Who was the governor whose father?
There's a bridge.
Like
there's a bridge named after his father.
That's right. And the audacity of him to be calling Zohran Mamdani a Nepo baby is just
nuts.
So it makes you like this is a win for pro-Palestinian narratives. It just is. And it is a win in terms of it revealing the weakness of the ADL and all of these other pro-Zionist organizations who have been working overtime to prevent this from happening. And that's why they're freaking out. And that's why this is a bit of a victory lap day, regardless of our, like, the broader criticism of Mamdani.
It's not official though that he won, right?
No, he's just up. Let me bring up that poll I had up earlier. Go ahead.
If he loses, and nobody does nothing, fuck y'all. Like, I because there's the thing is that it's not even that I think you're actually giving Cuomo too much credit when you say that he beat him soundly. He didn't even have to do anything. Like, Cuomo beat him, like he beat himself. The amount of flubs and just nonsense that he was doing, like, he didn't even have to really say anything. This man is like, New York has been ruining this. The head of New York has been ruining the city. It's like, you were the head of New York. Like, what are we talking about? And then when he misnomered Eugene for Jonathan Capehart on the news, on whatever mainstream media. Did you see that?
Wait, I missed that.
Oh, you will love it.
Eugene.
You love it. So he was on some MSNBC something or other, CNN, MSNBC, one of those things. And there was two brothers and a white woman. So it was Eugene.
Strength, diversity be a strength. That one.
That one.
Okay, let me pull up that video in a second, because that was really funny. Let me throw this up on the screen real quick though while I've got it here.
And Mamdani wasn't even there.
Mamdani wasn't even there. This is why I'm talking about this as though it's a fait accompli. Although, of course, you're right. I don't think the polls have closed. My brother just sent me a selfie of himself with his I voted sticker. He's the only one in the family still left in New York. So, like, thank you, brother, my literal brother. But these are the numbers that we were seeing earlier in the day. On the left, you have the number of people who voted early in the 2021 mayoral race. On the right, you have the number who voted early in the 2025 mayoral race. And as you can see,
nuts.
It's like, what? I'm not good at math, but like 3 or 4 times bigger.
Oh, you're not good at math either? It's beyond me.
I would have been a doctor if I could do some numbers, but instead, like all bad mathematicians, I went to law school. All right. So you can see, like, this is why there's a freak out, right? This is it. Okay, so let me see if I can find this Eugene clip. Oh, but one more while I still have this up actually. Let me take this down so y'all don't see all of my pinned why would I be pinning up in here? But this is also an indication of what's going on. Everybody is bending the knee now. So I didn't see this. This is Jamie Raskin. A whole slate of mainstream Democrats have been saying things like, well, I endorse the Democratic nominee without specifically saying Mamdani. But this is what we're getting now from Jamie Raskin.
You've been able to scare a lot of people on socialist. He's a democratic socialist. He's an FDR Democrat.
Gross.
Some reporters give me a hard time. You said like he's accomplished what FDR said. I said no, he's at the beginning of his career. He's got Rooseveltian ambition. Is that all right with you? That's the highest compliment you've ever seen. Well, I've been talking a lot about Roosevelt. You know, when he made that famous speech in 1932 at the convention where the lords of capital all hate me, they denounce me, they attack me. I welcome them.
I love that they pretend like FDR was not racist.
Stand with the working people of our state.
Well, look, this is one of the questions. Here, let me take this down. This is one of the issues that I teed up in the beginning, right? Because now we're in the middle of this debate about where the Democratic Party goes from here. Mm-hmm. And the centrist Dems, the mainstream establishment Dems, are desperate to figure out a way to neutralize the obvious enthusiasm around Mamdani, the popularity around Mamdani. Mm-hmm. How do you not come off as a hater, right? Because Chuck Schumer and what's his name?
Hakeem
Jeffries, my cousin Hakeem.
Corniest nigga alive.
100%.
Him and Corey. It's Ren and 10.
It's a race to the bottom of the corny barrel.
Ren and 10.
Like they are completely out of touch, and nobody wants to look as bad as they're looking. So what you're getting is a lot of people saying things like, I appreciate what Mamdani has been able to do in terms of turnout. The Democrats need this kind of enthusiasm. I appreciate how he's coming out against Donald Trump. Donald Trump, who of course endorsed Cuomo within the last 24 hours, which Mamdani very smartly turned around and promoted as a kind of mask off moment for the politics that Cuomo represents. But
now, wait.
Yeah.
Because I've been running around all day. And it took me a minute to process what you just said.
Yep.
Okay. So I see there's some people who are like, this guy isn't going to do anything substantive. And we're having a conversation that is above Mamdani as an individual. And so I want y'all to join us in that conversation, because what we are really watching is a party, like the concept of parties and who's in what realm, etc., becomes untenable when you have Donald Trump doing the endorsing of a candidate who Democrats have soundly endorsed in favor of somebody that is supposedly a part of or that they are supposed to be a part of alignment with. So how do you honestly reconcile Democrats are leftists, right? Because that's what he keeps saying. The Democrats are these like radical leftists while you are endorsing someone who was just running as a Democrat the other day.
Yep.
And who has always been a Democrat, like familially, right? How does that? And so that's the kind of stuff that you see when folks are like clawing at whatever. And this is why folks like Brianna and I are constantly trying to get folks to consider beyond, because these folks are already beyond. Dick Cheney died today, and he endorsed Kamala.
Yep. That's such an important point. I'm going to put this up in a second, but there was a woman named Emily May who tweeted this out a couple of days ago, or yesterday. She tweeted, Cuomo being endorsed by Trump proves what leftists have been saying for ages, that establishment Democrats still protect most of the same corporate interests as conservatives. They just stick a pride flag on it. Like this endorsement reveals what we've always been saying is true, which is that there are corporate interests that supersede any of these party interests. And when push comes to shove, if there's ever someone running as a Democrat, whether it's Zohran or Bernie, who comes close to actually talking about some of the systemic change, people go mask off and reveal their true colors. This is what Mamdani had to say about it, I believe, this morning on CNN.
Zohran Mamdani, thank you very much. Obviously, we're hours away.
Yes.
Hours away here. Are you ready? Do you expect it's going to be a big night for you?
I'm hopeful. I'm confident, but I'll never be complacent. But look, if people want to vote for Donald Trump and Elon Musk, they should vote for Andrew Cuomo. If people want to vote for change, they should vote for me.
All right, Zohran Mamdani.
I wonder who in the camp put that sentence together. Just run it. Run it.
There it is.
That was a solid mic drop. I mean, he's a rapper, right? Don't he be rapping? So, you know what though, Brianna? Like,
Yeah.
all of the Democrats were there before the Republicans, right? Like the Democrats are very staunchly a part of American history. American history has staunchly always been about corporatism. The individuals who began the United States were extreme capitalists who were slave owners, who started the country based on, we want to keep all the money we're making and not give it to you. That
Yes.
was the concept. Like, I know it gets presented as this like, rah, rah, shish, boom, bah, we're rebels. When really it was just like, nah, we don't like that we paying taxes and y'all not representing us. So we're actually going to just start our own joint because we're making all of this money and y'all don't deserve our money. So this is a country that whenever they talk about like good old American values, those are the values. The values are making money off the backs of free labor. That is the value of this country. And Democrats have been here longer in that mindset. And so, the MAGA likes to say stuff like that. But what I'm saying is the fact that the Democrats have been here from that moment in time should let you know that they are not an opposition party. They're the actual like tent pole. MAGA is their opposition party who's like, let's take it even more right.
Yeah.
So it's not about reforming the Democrats. It's not about like, why aren't the Democrats behaving like such and such? They are doing exactly what has been their mainframe to do. And they're really looking at MAGA like, dang, like y'all took our spot because since Nixon and the Southern strategy,
Yeah.
they were basically just like, oh, we're just not as racist as y'all.
Yes, 100%. 100%, which is why. So part of what's happening in this, big debate over, what way the Democratic Party should go is one is just neutralize Zohran, like neutralize the left. And the abundance movement, although they deny it up, down, and center, is all about creating a label for something that feels different from what just lost. That is not the Bernie movement. That actually has as its core anti-oligarchy, which is a message that you can't split the baby on, right? You can't say the whole message is about corporate greed and taxing the very rich and being anti-oligarchy, but also be against taxing the rich. But you can definitely be pro-abundance and against taxing the rich. Because abundance, at the end of the day, they say it's all about getting rid of red tape. It is a message that aligns with the sort of small government Republican stances. Sure, is there government waste? Does there exist inefficiencies in every system? Of course. And this is what Bernie acknowledged in this article, and that the abundists were running with, saying, see, even Bernie likes us. And they did the same thing with Zohran when he went on one of their shows. He, agreed with some narrow part of the agenda, which is, of course, we do need to build more houses. And in some municipalities, there are prohibitions against doing so that we should look at, of course. But what the broader abundance message is to say, let's get rid of any and all regulations and this with the singular goal of building more housing. And let's let public partnerships and corporations do what they want to do. And they are unwilling to look at
that's actually not abundance.
Right. And they're fundamentally unwilling to look at the role that corporations play. Blackwater, all of the people that are buying up all of the house, BlackRock, corporations play in the housing crisis and in the affordability crisis whatsoever. And people like Derek Thompson will explicitly say when that stuff is brought up, oh, it's not about oligarchy. Oligarchy isn't going to fix this. In Ezra Klein's article, he says, well, the reason that housing is more affordable in Texas versus California isn't because of because Texas got away with the oligarchy. It's like they're being paid to miss the point. So that, and so what they do, I
think that's actually accurate. I think they are being paid to miss the point, though.
They're 100% being paid
I think that's actually true.
Point. So a friend of the show, Aaron Regenberg, he's been on talking about the abundance stuff a couple of times in the last 6 months. He just wrote a new piece called Deciding to Fold in The Nation, in which he breaks down this what the abundance crew has been pushing for, including during that abundance conference they had a couple of months ago. They have this PAC called Welcome PAC that has released this white paper called Deciding to Win, which is a 59-page memo in which they put forth their vision of how the Democrats could win. And unsurprisingly, it is to be moderate, just to move to the middle. And at the end of this piece, Aaron does a good job of sort of summarizing the left's case in the alternative. which is to point out that there are all of these policies which are enormously popular that somehow the Ezra Kleins of the world magically forget about every time they talk about moving toward where Americans are and what Americans want, including Medicare for all, taxing the rich and minimum wage, all of these other kinds of things. And points out that it is the liberals, not the left, that over-indexed on cultural issues. Not that those aren't important, but when you're asking someone who has an economic crisis to prioritize cultural issues, then they get mad. They're not even necessarily mad at the cultural issue. They're mad that they feel like their more pressing economic issue isn't going to be addressed. So the abundists are claiming on one of these pieces, I'll find the direct quote in a second, that you've lost Black people, you've lost Black people going hard on defund the police, you've lost Latinos going to the left on immigration, you've lost women going to the left on abortion rights, as though correlation is causation, as though it's not. You left working class people in all of those groups.
Yes.
Or overrepresented in all of those groups, women, minorities, etc., precisely because you haven't been willing to do the things that would make their lives materially better.
Facts. But that's the thing. I feel it's all a spin all the time. It's actually quite dizzying.
Yep.
Because we're always having to reset the retrograde. Like they're always doing this. The propaganda is so abundant.
Nice.
Mm-hmm. That I find it actually at this point a needle in a haystack to find a straight ahead story written or a straight ahead take coming from these spaces. We were in a space recently where it just feels like, how do I put this? It just feels like there's the people that are actually living life and then like having to like exist. And then there's the people who are talking about the people that are actually having to exist, but they're not talking to each other. Yeah. So they're just in this like weird silo that is completely devoid of the actual realities. And they're fine with that. And I see that on both sides. I see that not just from people who are talking nonsense of abundance, but I even see that from people who think that they're really being like progressive, but they're still disconnected. I saw someone earlier today, I was on live on Instagram, and this person was like, you know, I'm on Snap, and I'm not going to get my SNAP benefits. And then later in the live, they were like, I love Kamala Harris. And I was like,
well, look, if Kamala Harris, instead of celebrating the Cheneys, as she continued to do today, had not been touring the country and going to Dearborn with Liz Cheney.
There you go.
But instead had, I don't know, broken from Biden on Gaza, she could have won 3 states, swing states.
Yes.
Where that was the number one issue for 2020 voters who declined to vote in 2024, the genocide in Gaza. And
she also had nothing about working class people in her policy. It was all about middle class.
Yep.
This, I'm going to get the middle class back.
Yep.
Have more babies and I'll give you some money.
Yep. She loves to do a policy. This is from 2020. So apologies for me to be still so 2020 brain, but that was the one I worked on. So I remember all the details. But she had this housing policy back then where I swear to God, it was something like, if you own a business in a low-income neighborhood for 3 years and your tax return showed this amount of money, and you also have a one-legged cat named Cleopatra, and you can hula hoop and hop on one leg for 15 minutes at a time, then you can get a rebate on your taxes in the amount of $47.87. It was the most like.
Wait. Someone in your comments said, what is Mom Donnie's plan for FBA New Yorkers? Now, first of all, I consider the FBA FBI. Any of y'all using that term, any Black people referring to themselves as FBA, I consider you FBI. So let's just know that that's where I stand on that. However,
you've tangled with the descendants, Amanda.
Ooh,
they're mad at you,
girl. The descendants
from having a Caribbean mom.
Yes, honey. They like who? Malcolm X's mother. I'm like Malcolm X's mother from Grenada. They're like, that's different. It's different. It's different. It's different. So many
for people who don't know,
what?
Sorry, it's like for people who know it, it's like It's like ADOS. It's like
Yes,
they
foundational
enter
black.
black descendants of North American slavery, of
Yes.
American slavery, I should say, because it's Caribbean count as North America. I don't know what continent.
No, it's not a continent.
I mean,
And
but what
but it
continent?
also like
That's stupid.
it centers under the auspices that there's somebody not. It centers under the auspices that that other members of the diaspora are not centering them. So that's the beef. But
Yeah, it's diaspora wars. It's diaspora wars.
But I can't say I was shocked, but there was such an effort by quote unquote black leadership to also slight Mamdani, right? To also use identity politics to push the Democrat agenda that never shows up for black people. And so when we talk about FBA, like, you are subscribing to identity politics. I just want you to know that, person in here who's like, I'm FBA. And identity politics is a ploy that is used to castrate the ability for there to be coalition building, the ability for you to see the realities of policies beyond blackness. And so it just gets you roped into voting for people because they black. And it's like, that ship has sailed. We don't have people. At one point in time, when black folks were showing up in political spaces, it was as a political activist. That's the only way, like, because you had to go into that space knowing that you could get mollywopped. We not in that time no more. They go in there knowing,
I hope you're right. I'm sorry.
Folks go into politics at this point like, oh, I can come up. Like Nancy Pelosi came up mega mills. I can come up if I work my way up.
Yeah.
I hope that, I know people are like,
100%. Yeah.
Mamdani is different. I haven't. Here's my question for you, Brianna Joy Gray, BJG.
Please.
When it comes to holding folks accountable, what are ways that the people can actually hold elected officials accountable? Because the only version that folks end up saying back to me is, we won't vote for them next time. I'm like, that's a wow.
Yeah. And it's a while. It also ignores the power of incumbency and how once they get their toehold in, you'll have much less leverage. So This was the argument that happened with AOC, right? It's like, give her a chance, yada, yada, yada. Yeah. Okay, look, I never want to, I know that my own credibility is also kind of on the line if I'm perceived as being unfair or to judge prematurely. But I do think it's our responsibility to judge concurrently as the things are happening and to apply pressure consistently, especially when prior to being elected, they are more vulnerable to our pushback, which is why it's been so important to me not to buy into the narrative that some of the left has embraced over the course of Mamdani's campaign, which is to say he has to do what he has to do, just let it go, et cetera, et cetera. The other side isn't doing that, right? The business lobby that Astrid Herden wrote about him meeting with in that lengthy New York Times profile from a couple of weeks ago isn't waiting until he wins to press their agenda. They're saying, I'm going to try to defeat your campaign unless you bend the knee to our interest. All of these different groups of Zionist New Yorkers, some of whom have come around to Mamdani, who declare themselves to be liberal Zionists and are standing with him at the podium, have pushed and prodded and pressured him to get to a point where he says he will reconsider and advise his supporters not to use the phrase globalized to intifada.
Right.
They were able to hurt our guy, lets him get away with saying that he no longer thinks the racist NYPD is racist. And we're supposed, and to keep Jessica Tisch, the Eric Adams, Zionist New York police commissioner, on board. And we're supposed to just believe that she's going to do his bidding once he's the mayor. And that's what he told a couple of lefty podcasters who, to their credit, pressed him on this issue during a live show. I covered this on a recent episode of Bad Faith podcast. I think this was the one I did with Matt McManus, one of the recent episodes in the last week or two. So yeah, I think that you can see the direction that Mamdani is. Name me one thing that Mamdani has gotten more bold and more left on since he conclusively won the Democratic primary.
I can't. It's honestly
okay, and
it was
we
very
have to ask
much
ourselves why that is.
It was very much, oh, this is in the bag now. It was very much that. It was very much, oh, they in the bag now. And then these other folks started coming for his neck. And instead, to me, I would have liked to have seen him say, it's in the bag. Like, why would I even need to capitulate to you?
Exactly. Exactly.
I've already
that's what Trump,
this.
I mean, I'm sorry, I don't mean to be like,
I'm with you. And so we're going to see what that looks like. You're breaking up or I'm breaking up.
I don't mean to be like Donald
one.
Trump should be. Oh, sorry. I think it's me. I think I have way too many windows open, and I'm going to try to resolve.
Mine looks like Debra Messing's DM. Mine looks like Debra Messing's stories. So let me also do that. We're both just closing tabs. I can't hear you at all if you're talking. You sound like Transformers, robots in disguise. Oh, she's gone. She left. Well, y'all, while I'm here, my book, What Would the Ancestors Say, comes out on Saturday. I'll be doing a live stream performance and reading of the full text all the way through, as well as folks will get the opportunity to get a signed copy of the book with their tickets. You can go to amandaseals.com to check that out. And this book is something that I'm really excited about because I feel like I stumbled upon a new genre. It felt like a process that I had also stumbled upon. And so for those who don't know, I'm also a visual artist. So I've got some illustrations here in the book. And let me show you. Let's see. We've got Frederick. So the theme is that they're all on the phone because our ancestors are on call. And, I believe that all of this that's going on is beyond just a political conversation. And my frustration, my irritation as of right now is that I feel like so many of us are we're having these conversations knowing that there's actually whole other levels, and so many folks are just simply not considering that there's other levels. And so we can't actually get beyond this surface of analysis. So yes, Amanda did do these drawings. I added a foreword. There's also a additional resources list in the back with books and films and essays and speeches that are I haven't eaten, so that are supplementary. This is what happens when you have someone on the show that has a show. So you was good.
So good.
I was like, I hope she knows she's in good hands. Don't stress. We got you, Beret.
I knew you would hold it down. Thank you very much.
Someone asked who's the publisher. I am the publisher. And I also want to point out that self-publishing gets looked down upon by a lot of folks, but in this specific day and age, and it's always been this, but it's gotten even clearer, we have to own our own IP. These spaces, mega corporate spaces, they are very much about having your IP and running with it till the end, and you are fighting them for getting the pittance that you are owed for everything that you have put into this. I learned the InDesign program so I could actually lay out the book myself and do so in a fashion that spoke to me, and I didn't want to have to argue with nobody about it. This particular page I'm very proud of because what I've done here is these strands of text are the names of Palestinians who have been killed by state-sanctioned violence, as well as Black people in the United States who have
Oh.
And so
Sorry.
my goal,
Sorry.
I understand the struggle. I'm in the struggle every Wednesday. Views from Inland, they be like, take your time, sister, take your time. I be out in the mic ain't working, etc. So,
Okay.
so I just wanted to everybody out there who is considering a path as a creative and you're like, dang, but I need to have a big company behind me, etc. I will say this. Even though I was on Insecure, it was the stuff that I created on my own that has allowed me to continue to fight the Zionists, that has allowed me to continue to extract myself from capitalism, because your creating doesn't stop. And folks who like Zionists, they can't wrap their heads around that because they create for the purpose of capital only. And we're not about that life. So shout out to everybody who supports independent artists, etc. You can go to amandaseals.com and Brianna Joy Gray, the Great BJG. I love the way that is in my mouth, BJG.
Thank you.
Put up my tour. So I am going to be in those cities, San Diego, Los Angeles. The tickets are sold out for the in-studio performance in Los Angeles, but Seattle, Detroit, Chicago. The Zionists are trying to shut it down. They're trying to intimidate the organizations that I'm working with. They're trying to intimidate the venues that I'm going to be at. And, the reality is that there's more of us than them. So I hope that you guys will show up and that you will be proud in your keffiyehs and in your dashikis and in your Adidas tracksuits or whatever you feel comfortable in. And I'm going to be there if there's 2 people or not. So that's going to be that's how that's going to go down.
Well, it's not going to be any 2 people because there are almost 1,000 people in this chat watching you right now. And I encourage you to follow the advice of the ticker tape at the bottom of the stream and to subscribe and hit the bell. I am obviously a Luddite and could not figure a lot of things out today, including how to co-stream to Amanda's YouTube. So also take a minute at some point this evening to go over to Amanda's
after, Brianna. I think honestly it's going to let you do it after. I genuinely feel like that's what the vibe is.
I will do it after, but there's also a way to do it concurrently. I've done it with Katie before. I texted her. She was on the road, and then I texted her producer, but he didn't get back to me. But it's okay.
Oh my
we'll
God,
definitely figure it out.
Thank you. Wow.
I wish I was running around here like a chicken with my head cut off because I haven't closed my rings. I have not showered. I was not able to get to half of what I wanted to do today. But
I was at FedEx, and they was moving so slow. And I live in a small area. I live in a town. So like it's the same people all the time. You feel me? So like when I got there, I was like, oh, it's the slow one. And it's not neurodivergence. He's just very casual, very, the phone is ringing. Rang. So someone asked, am I taking the book on the Bible Belt? Yes. So the tour is in 3 parts. So I'm going to be going to the Southeast. I'm going to be going to the Northeast as well. And then we'll see what happens. But I'm with you, Brianna. Today was just a weird, astrology girlies would be like, it's because the moon.
Yeah. Energetically, it's weird. Speaking of, if watchers haven't watched the astrology episode of Bad Faith with Issa Nagasawa, she's phenomenal. It caused quite the hubbub in Bad Faith Patreon. I don't think there's ever been more comments over on the Patreon.
Why was there a hubbub?
People are divided. Amanda, you know how people are. The folks that listen to me for political analysis were really sort of they were miffed. I'll say they were miffed at the idea that someone who they trust and think is like credible and respectable and grounded would even entertain the kind of spirituality.
Can I speak to that?
Please do.
So this is something that we really do have to move past. And I want us to think about the fact that anything that colonizers have rendered as unintellectual, have rendered as anti-faith, etc., ends up being attached to the indigenous peoples that they were colonizing. Like astrology is not solely related to Romans or Greeks. This is something that has existed in cultures around this globe long before. And we are seeing I just saw a leather map today that was found. Hold on, I just saw hold on, I want to tell you about this because I was so just like blown away by this, because we are so lied to on such a consistent basis about the amount of wisdom, the amount of knowledge that took place before these whites showed up. So a 300-year-old leather star map created by the Skiddy Pawnee. So that is the indigenous people of Indiana. We know this because of Leslie Knope. Offers a rare glimpse into Native American astronomy on the Central Plains. And some people in here might be like, well, that's astronomy. That's not astrology. However, it all connects because ultimately astrology is the study of the planets as a telling of how we are moving here on the earth. Yes. And I am a very big believer that one of the reasons why our resistance efforts end up being thwarted so often is because we have been thwarted from reconnecting to knowledge that is beyond the classical, quote unquote, concept of knowledge. We actually need to move beyond those barriers and get back to adding a metaphysical element into our political practice, or else we're just mimicking the same people that we keep trying to fight.
I agree. And I think that Issa in particular is a very good vessel for leftists to start to learn about astrology, because she is so grounded in revolutionary practice. And she is at bottom, a very empathetic, emotional intelligence off the roof. The way my mom was like, you need to make her your best friend. Like she's better than my therapist. I was like, she's better than my therapist too.
Did you talk about astrology as it related to like movements and nations? Because that's a whole area of astrology. Like these folks have been using astrology. Nancy Reagan was running the White House with an astrologist.
She brought all of that up. Amanda, this whole episode is free, so you can listen to it wherever you get your podcast.
Well, I am a subscriber to Bad Faith Patreon, so I don't have to do that.
Thank you very much. But everyone, I wanted this one to be free, and it's free. So y'all,
why did you want this particular one to be free?
Well, because selfishly, this is where I find myself really wanting funner episodes. Like I want a break. I gotta just confess. Like sometimes I want a break from hardcore politics. I don't like plan it, like whatever. Usually the pacing of the episodes is what it is. And if the interview happened to happen before Thursday, it's free. And if it happened to happen on a Friday or a Monday or Tuesday, then it's on a Friday, then it comes out on Monday and it's paywalled. I don't really plan it, but I was glad. I was glad this one landed the way it did, because I didn't want to give anybody an excuse not to watch it just because of their ideological priors. I wanted.
What did they feel was not real about it? Like, what did they feel was not? I guess what I'm saying is, what did they feel that was like anti the you that they have come to trust?
Because Amanda, you know how men are. Can I just say it? And also, maybe we should bring Nathan Robinson, friend of the show, is waiting in the wings as well. He is someone who really embraces the idea of arts and culture as being part of the left movement.
Needs to.
As you can see from his set. And since I'm about to go in on men, let's go ahead and bring Nathan Robinson into this as well. Hey, Nathan. Have you met Amanda Seals? Do you know Amanda?
I have not met Nathan. Hello, Nathan.
So, Amanda, if you don't know, Nathan is the publisher of what I believe to be the best magazine on the left, Current Affairs magazine. And it is a magazine that embraces, we have the same edition.
Exactly.
This is the last one I wrote something for. That's why I keep this one up here, and I like the cover a lot. It's iconic. But who, as you can tell,
I love a cat. So
love a cat, and look at him. Like he clearly embraces the kind of whimsy in his personal presentation. But for most people, they think of politics as like The Economist, red, black and white, like really staid, like really serious. And I think they have trouble with the idea of someone who seems unserious because they think astrology is unserious, being able to give them good advice about the real world.
Their version of politics is literally determined for them by the same people that have made this a crate and barrel beige world. The people who try and tell you that it's minimalist, and it's like, no, it's devoid of culture. It's devoid 100%. Of vibes.
So men, I was going to say men in particular, and not all men, but Nathan, you can feel free to weigh in. I find that men in particular have a real hostility toward a lot of things that are sort of women coded, and astrology is one of those. If you think about how differently we treat like a husband who wants to watch the game and the wife kind of has to just go along with it because it's game night, versus a wife who might say, well, this is the season finale of some reality TV show. Like those are treated as like, oh, well, the game is serious and the reality TV is frivolous, when they're both frivolous. They're both entertainment. Like,
Yes.
they're both dumb. Like
They're both created to distract you, and bread and circuses. Like that's what they're for.
yeah, and I enjoy reality TV, but I'm not gonna pretend it's high art, but like also don't pretend
It kind of is though.
the Lions losing.
Okay, but it also just ignores the actual diversity that has been a part of the leftist movement forever, right? Like, so you're telling me that Diego and Frida are not like imperative elements of the leftist movement, and they were consummate artists. I mean, that is not something that you can overlook. And also, I just think we can't be in the same mindset of only these people are allowed to give points because we've deemed them as the true version of, and it's not even based on values or knowledge. Like if I'm an artist, I have the same understanding of theory, I have the same understanding of praxis. I just have a different way of thinking. I become an asset because now we have an expanded consciousness to work from. And so
Yeah, well, to play
I'm
devil's
also a
advocate-
Cancer with a Cancer moon.
Okay, well, Amanda,
Virgo
I
rising.
apologize in advance. There was a little bit of Cancer slander in this episode, but in my defense,
Men?
it was because
Oh
of
yeah,
men.
yeah.
Cancer men. I love a Cancer woman. Nathan, what's your sign?
Can I? Oh, I don't know. But
When's your
can
birthday?
August 23rd.
Oh, a Virgo.
You.
Okay, continue.
Okay. I just one little data point to kind of back up what Amanda's saying there is this. I try to avoid criticizing too much fellow leftists, but if you open up Jacobin magazine, for example, there's a kind of howling absence, and I like a lot of what Jacobin publishes, but it's more about what they don't publish. And if you'll notice, there's very little writing on literature, art, theater, music. There's a little bit of writing on film, religion and spirituality. You know, these things are just not really part of what they think of as subjects for the left to discuss. And that's a little weird, right? I mean, They discuss, the labor movement and the workplace, and they discuss political organizing and policing and lots of important things. But then there's this whole other side of life, which is culture. And some leftists, and I do think of Jacobin as kind of like the paradigmatic example of this, just aren't really interested in these things, in this side of life. And that's kind of troubling to me.
Yeah, I don't think that's like, I think it's like counter to the actual, like what necessitates looking at an entire working class, right? Mm-hmm. And it leaves out a large swaths of people that are a part of not only this politics and this thinking, but also this actual space and place of people. Like you're leaving me out. Don't leave me out.
I agree. Look, to this person's point, who says Bree in solidarity with a vote for Sliwa is a vote for Mamdani with a red beret. Sliwa has captured the hearts and minds of many people because he understands some good branding and because the man goes hard for cats. He loves animals. He's willing to show the diversity of his interests. Do I agree with his political agenda? Absolutely not. But you got to give points for style. Even Derek, the style guy on Twitter, had to say today, look, I have to tip my hat to this tie he wore to vote today. He got the endorsement of some like New York animals group, and he wore a tie that was just all kitty cats on it.
Not kitty cat. Kitty cat.
Yes, kitty cat.
I have a whole section in the book about the
Mhm.
Panthers, and I do an entire bit because there is some stand-up that I translated into the text, and I basically reenact a Black Panther Party meeting where the beret was decided on, and
How was that? How did they decide on the beret? I'm curious.
so the real reason why the beret was decided on was because it was continuing the presence of like the French Foreign Legion, and like the beret had become associated with organized resistance. However, in my mind, that's not how it happens. And so I do a whole bit that a Frenchman showed up to a meeting and was like, I think that you guys should do something different, to just kind of like add to the pizzazz. And that is actually how they became aware.
You guys see me wanted to get my wear out of this $15 hat because I think it's
You
chic.
could rock that. You could rock that.
When the Bernie campaign was happening in 2020, I pitched us having little red handkerchiefs because I felt like little neck scarves. Because hear me out. There's this story about is it the Bacon Rebellion that says it was like a coal mine, and everyone was paid in script, and there was a company town, and the conditions were really terrible, and they had white American workers, they had Black American workers, and then they had white immigrant workers, and they housed them differently, paid them differently, and pit them all against each other. But then there was this big rebellion, and they were like, no, screw this noise. We're all going to glom together. And part of the way they identified with each other were these red handkerchiefs. And the story is maybe apocryphal, but some think that's where the term redneck came from in the first place. So you're taking what we think of as a term of like, that's coded for white, rural, ignorant, back attitude, whatever, and say, no, this was actually originally a term about cross-class and cross-national and cross-racial solidarity. We're going to take that, appropriate it as part of our campaign, and also it's a clothing item that it's cheap to manufacture, cheap to buy, and that you can wear with all items of clothing without committing to like a whole t-shirt or something.
Yeah.
And you can tie it to your purse, and people in the world can know, hey, I'm with this movement. But nobody listened to me.
Zohran did bandanas.
Did he?
Zohran did yellow bandanas with pigeons and hot dogs and taxis on them.
Yes.
And
I did see those. I did.
Everyone wanted the Zohran bandanas, and that's the difference.
It's smart. Like, you have to normalize the idea that you're not alone. So much of this stuff is a collective action problem. You need to be seen out in the world, embracing the ideology.
That's what the
visuals.
keffiyeh is. That's what the keffiyeh has become, because people always say to me, I see you. Thank you for wearing your keffiyeh. Like all the time. Like we have moments in, whether it's in the mall or in a airport or the grocery store. And I think that, to your point, I remember actually Alice Walker saying that she had become so deeply vested in the Palestine movement that she gave herself a stroke. And she was like, I had to figure out like how to still support Palestine, but in a way that's not going to kill me. And so she was like, so I wear a keffiyeh every day, everywhere I go. And she was like, of course it's, not the same effort as I was giving before, but it's still me showing solidarity in any space. And she was like, that's, so that's her. She was like, that's where I'm at with it now. She was also on a boat that got bombed. So it's like, okay,
Yeah, I love that story. I was not familiar with that, but that totally resonates with me. I was going to just shout out. Also, I want to say, Amanda, you've been here for an hour. I don't want to keep you all night. You're welcome to stay. But before you go out, if you go, I want to make sure I read that Juju says that she tips her beret to us fine ladies. And also that Brent said hi to the both of us, that we're the goats and with good hearts. We appreciate the both of you, and these other super stickers without any
supers, y'all. Good supporting.
Yes, everyone. The crew is great. The crew is great. But Amanda, before you go, I had this queued up. Or you don't have to go. I'm not kicking you out. I just want to. I didn't.
Oh no, I want to see it. Did you actually see it? See what? This clip?
Oh no. Yeah. Not this. Oh God.
Oh, I've seen it, but I think the world needs to see it.
To correct the record, if you give you a chance to correct the record, if you.
Oh my God! Why are the feds hating on you right now?
Oh my
give you a chance to
For real.
give you a chance to correct the record if you didn't mean to say, but it sounded like you said diversity can also be a weakness. What did you mean by that?
Diversity can be a weakness if you have antipathy among groups, Jonathan. If you have racism.
Give you a chance to.
I'm Eugene. Sorry, I thought I have a longer version of it. That's my bad.
But that's all we needed to see.
Say.
I'm Eugene.
That's all we needed to see.
Sent me, okay, with a flip of the afro, just a quick flick. I'm Eugene. Because like Kim and Cape Heart are not even remotely similar. Anywho.
No.
What was he even trying to say, you guys? Like,
Well,
I honestly, it was so nonsensical. I don't even know what he was actually trying to convey.
I don't think he knew either. That's why I was gonna go to the longer version to remind myself.
Diversity is our strength, but it can also be a weakness. So you have to work very, very hard to make sure you're always keeping people united.
It sounded like you said diversity can also be a weakness. What did you mean by that?
Diversity can be a weakness if you have antipathy among groups, Jonathan. If you have racism or anti-Semitism, etc. So then you'd have friction, right? Which we have had in New York.
So there is a charitable way to
So what he's saying, I guess, is
interpret what he's trying to say,
is bad, but he's calling that a weakness of diversity.
That's okay.
Like diversity isn't a weakness. There's antipathy between groups, meaning like the racism's the problem, not the diversity. It's diversity's fault in the same way that it's my fault for getting punched in the face because I have a face.
Yes. God dang it, Brianna. Why would you show up here with your face? You knew people was going to be here with fists and you going to walk up in here with your face.
It's called the stop hitting yourself defense for bigots.
Wow. But that, okay. But for him to say that on national television means that like, this is a rhetoric that he's like super comfortable engaging in all the time.
Yeah, I think, and this will maybe brings us back to the articles that I teed up this hour with and what I brought Nathan to speak with in more detail, because he just wrote a piece critiquing these kinds of pieces in Current Affairs magazine. But to me, it's endemic of the liberals deciding that their way through the Mamdani and kind of left successes of the moment is to be the adults in the room who are willing to throw identity politics under the bus. But they don't really have an understanding of a kind of a weaponized identity politics that was very superficial, that was bad for liberals, versus just abandoning the substantive interests of historical minorities, like a historically marginalized group. So he's clearly been in some like third way chat about how we're not doing diversity politics anymore and that DEI was bad for Dems. So that's my theory as to why he's thinking diversity is a weakness. He's thinking like DEI was a problem for Dems, but it came out as diversity bad because it causes friction.
And interestingly, all that whole talking point of diversity as a weakness, I mean, is directly lifted from Tucker Carlson and the white nationalists. Tucker Carlson gave a big monologue like in 2022 called something like diversity is not a strength, it's a weakness.
Really?
And his whole argument is a country needs to cohere. It needs to have a coherent national culture so you can pursue your national project, and meaning essentially like a country is stronger if it's a single race. And, so Cuomo there and the liberals who are ditching what they consider to be bad, pernicious identity politics, really just end up spouting all of the rhetoric of the white nationalist right, who use this whole diversity as a weakness thing. I mean, that's straight out of Tucker Carlson and the far right.
I would also add, to circle all the way back to what Brianna was saying before you brought me on, Brianna, you were talking about this very obvious shift by the Dems to be like, we're alpha, we're dudes. We're gonna get the dudes, right? When I was like pitching a show. I was pitching a show in LA in like 2023. And so you get these like weekly pitches, like pitch sheets that basically tell you like, this is what this network is looking for. This is what that network is looking for. And I will never forget when my agent was like, so the real vibe right now is loud male. And I was like,
right now,
what does that even mean? And she was like, shows like Dave, just like loud male, you know what I mean? And I was like, I genuinely am like, I don't understand what you mean. But that is what the Dems are doing. Like, it is that. It's loud male. Yep. And I'm always going to bring Kamala Harris' name into it. She is now doing loud male. You got her cursing like a sailor now, right? Like the posture, you're watching all of them shift posture. And they're shifting posture to Tucker Carlson, I think, because he has leaned a little. I mean, how do you even? It's basically, he did the Michael Jackson lean in Smooth Criminal. Like, that's how far right he has always been. So he's essentially just like standing up straight now. But they are like, oh, we can get the ones like him. So we need to like lean into him. And it's disgusting to watch. It really is.
I'm glad you teed it up like that, Amanda, because this is, I think, the central tension of what's going on here is that one team is claiming, okay, there's a broad agreement that obviously you got to pull some people back into the coalition if the Democrats want to win. My audience knows about the Democrat winning not being majority, but just for the sake of the argument that's happening right now, the Democrats are in turmoil and they're saying we got to bring people back in the coalition. And one camp is saying we do so by moving to the right and becoming some version of a Republican, moving to the right on immigration, adopting a kind of economic populism. Even Ezra Klein will admit to doing that, but he'll only take that so far. And then there's the left that says, well, economic populism isn't the way. It is in fact the way, but you don't have to move so to the right on all of these cultural issues. And what Bernie Sanders says in the New York Magazine piece, abundance versus socialism, is that, look, you can just say economic populism and then people don't pay that much attention. They just kind of deprioritize the cultural stuff. And it doesn't matter if they disagree with you, but you don't have to say, I don't like X group anymore, because you're never going to convincingly, well, maybe some people are actually racist and bigots, but you're never going to convincingly out-bigot the right. So it's a futile effort, besides which that's not what really this is about. But the abundance people are fully saying, no, we've got to run more anti-choice candidates, and we have to reverse ourselves on some of these policies. Nathan, you wrote this piece. The case for centrism does not hold up. Sorry, I'm sure it looks beautiful.
Oh, you printed it out too. Oh, here we go.
Apologies to the trees. I print everything out.
No, it's
Nathan,
good.
in the midst of whatever you're about to do, will you also help for me, because my ignorance is showing here, help me land who these abundance people are? Because this is the first.
They're not anybody. You're completely correct not to know any of these people because they're nobody. It's like, essentially like Ezra Klein, the thought leader of the Democratic Party, and a writer at The Atlantic, Derek Thompson wrote a book, which is now has been a bestseller for weeks and weeks, called Abundance. And they essentially had both written articles for their respective publications that both made some version of the same argument. And the argument they made was that the Democrats are searching for their path back to power. The agenda they need is this thing called abundance, which sounds very vague and confusing. And essentially, when you dig into what they mean by it, they basically mean deregulation a little bit, but like YIMBY, the idea of building lots of houses, and ditching, the bad identity politics, and that's kind of what
like
they're arguing.
Nice capitalism.
Yeah, the nice capitalism.
So neoliberalism. Okay. Okay.
Yeah, well, yes, no, that's right. And then it comes back, and you're like, "Wait, isn't this just neoliberalism again?" And they go, "No, well, no, it's not neoliberalism. This is abundance. It's totally different, but it's just old wine and new bottles."
Trippy about that, you guys. They're doing the language flip thing that these Republicans have become so gifted at with woke, with DEI, with I almost said DTF, DEI, with critical race theory, because the concept of abundance,
lots of stuff. Who doesn't want that?
It is in direct. It is in direct arguing. It is in direct conflict with the true scarcity that capitalism causes. So they're literally just trying to take this concept of abundance and call it something else. It's very the Kardashians making literally not mean literally, which drives me. and like, I can't remember if it was Merriam-Webster or somebody put that in the actual dictionary, that there's another version of literally other than literally. But that is frightening to me, namely because they're just so far away from where I think people actually think they are. And I think that in maybe as soon as 10 years, we should all come back here and talk about the time when we were on here talking about the Democrats like they would continue to exist. So let's just make that date.
This is so, Amanda, if you want to, we can come back to this like sort of central tension that emerged during our kind of organizing meeting that we were both a part of, that we both have alluded to earlier in this conversation, where Amanda and I emerged as kind of very loud.
And I need y'all to know that we were positioned inadvertently at opposite ends of the room. So there was literally there was no escaping us. And we just ping-ponged back and forth. They got good cop, bad. Well, we don't do, it's ACAB all day. So they got nice high-pitched voice Black woman, and they got deep voice Black woman. And what was that?
I know they were so tired of us. But this division emerged between a more reformist everyone in there was ideologically aligned, but it was like a methodological difference of more reformist versus more revolutionary. But if people want a good faith, like unbiased, not even good faith, like the way the abundists would probably want themselves described, because the New York Mag article was very, like, I would argue, pro-abundance. This is how they characterize it. After describing on the left what's going on with Bernie and Zohran and AOC, which I don't have to read out loud because we all understand the appeal of that stuff, they say the third force in American politics is the abundance movement, which is exciting not to the general public, but to the political
spoken.
Exactly. But to the political class and wonk and intelligentsia, popularized by the book of the same name. Wonk, like, into the details.
Yeah.
Popularized by the book of the same name by Ezra Klein and Derek Thompson, and argues that the United States has grown stagnant and unaffordable thanks to regulatory absurdities, NIMBY homeowners, infrastructure blocking environmentalists, and other obstacles to, quote, a liberalism that builds. Like the populists on the left, abundance partisans argue the system is broken, yet their attitude towards Silicon Valley is more tech utopian than anti-monopolistic, and the targets of their critiques tend not to be billionaires, but others in the Democratic coalition, which has led to a civil war between them and the Bernie Zohran AOC faction. The term abundance and anti-oligarchy are too narrow to encompass all the people now associated with each camp, but they have come to represent a feverish grasp for the steering wheel as the party searches for direction.
So this just sounds like a couple of guys trying to make fetch happen. That's literally
100%. I've said that exact thing so many times. They're trying to make abundance happen. And there's a lot of money behind this. So Obama is talking about abundance. Every other elected representative who goes on Positive America just throws the word abundance in conversation.
They sat around a table and they came up with this, and now we're supposed to just go along with it.
100%. And they had a conference. The abundance people had a conference called, sorry, I got like too many sheets of paper, called the Welcome Pack a couple of months ago in the fall. And they issued this paper called Deciding to Win, which is this 59-page memo analyzing what the next steps should be. Yeah. And of course, their next steps are all the kind of milk to they're allowing a little bit on the fringes, the idea that, economic populism is popular, but they notably omit those big tent policies that are very popular, like actually taxing the rich. So you want to do economic populism, but okay, fine, we'll concede to a $15 minimum wage 10 years after it should have been a $25 minimum wage. And we're going to know that the Democrats are never going to pass it for the same reason the Biden never passed it with his trifecta. And we're going to say that this means we're doing populism now. Is that fair? Is that fair, Nathan? How do you address the case for centrism in your takedown piece filed today? That came out today.
It did come out today. That interestingly, with that deciding to win report, because Ross Douthat published there's two pieces in the New York Times that I responded to. One is the New York Times published this piece that says, just by the editorial board as a whole, it says moderate candidates tend to win, they have an advantage. And Democrats generally just need to, abandon all the bad identity politics stuff and move to the center. And then Ross Douthat published his own column arguing basically the same thing. And he said, it's so obvious that Kamala Harris lost because she was too left wing. And if you don't believe me, read this report. Well, interestingly, if you do read the report, I guess he didn't expect anyone to actually click on it or click through it. It's true that it kind of recommends that. But one of the things that's interesting is as you've hinted there, the evidence that Bernie Sanders politics are incredibly popular is by now so beyond dispute that they essentially have to concede this point. Yeah. We've been arguing, we on the left have been arguing that Bernie for 10 years now, Current Affairs just had its 10-year anniversary, and one of our first articles was you need to nominate Bernie Sanders if you're going to win. This is the politics that can defeat the far right. So we've been banging this drum for 10 years. And the crazy thing about that report is that ultimately, it doesn't show that that housing deregulation is the center of an agenda that can win. In fact, they say in it, the Bernie Sanders, Zohran Mamdani, AOC, relentless focus on improving people's basic economic circumstances is the way to go. They say, in fact, the template is Bernie 2016, and they also say the template is Obama 2008, even though those are quite different campaigns. But it's remarkable to me how much they concede. And then I went into the evidence that the New York Times produces that moderate candidates do better. Well, that it turns out they just basically put in fraudulent numbers. There's a political scientist, Adam Barika, who dived into how they do this. And essentially, they rigged the statistics to prove something that was actually false. He pretty convincingly shows that basically they just proved that people with super PAC money win elections and people who are incumbents. And they concluded instead, because those people tend to be moderates, right? Because there are a lot of incumbents who are moderates. They're like, oh, no, moderates win. It's because they're moderates. Well, right. Barika shows that actually they haven't proved it at all. So, there's these two articles that are making this case, and neither of them provide any, actual strong evidence. And in fact, if you dive into the evidence they do provide, in the case of this report, it basically admits that the opposite is true.
Yeah, let me tell you, let me read a little bit, if you can hold on to your lunch or your dinner or whatever meal you've last eaten while I get through this, because it is vomit inducing. This is from Ezra Klein's piece. Oh my God. Titled, "This is the Way You Beat Trump and Trumpism." He says, one worry I have about Democrats.
Wait, when was this?
This came out November 2nd, a couple days ago. He says, one worry I have about Democrats right now is that they do not want to confront how much of the country disagrees with them. Okay. Polls show that the percentage of voters saying the Democratic Party is too liberal increased sharply between 2012 and 2024. The percentage of voters saying the Republican Party is too conservative fell during that same period. Even the violence and corruption of Trump's second administration have not fully closed the gap. Now, he attributes, I circled this and said, you're right, the party is too liberal. It's not the same thing as being too left. Now, this is the part that's really going to make you want to hurl. I could not believe this. He says, sorry, where's the bit about us being too black? Oh, here it is. He says, okay, from 2012 to 2024, Democrats moved sharply left on virtually every issue.
Hey, remember when the left won?
in the room with us?
Okay. All right. Here's what he says. They often did so arguing that they were finally representing communities that had long suffered from too little representation. This is what they were told to do by the online voices and professional groups that claim to represent these communities. But it went wrong. Democrats became more uncompromising on immigration and lost support among Hispanic voters. They moved left on guns and student loans and climate and lost ground with young voters. They moved left on race and lost ground with Black voters.
How do you move left on race? What does that even mean?
He doesn't substantiate any of this. They moved left on economics. Is the economics in the room with us? Exactly. They moved left on economics and lost ground with working class voters. The only major group, I agree with the dog. The only major group in which Democrats saw improvement across the whole 12-year period was college-educated white voters. Now, group, team, panel. What do you think is going on here? I turn it over to you.
Oh, I mean, there's a version of this. Ezra Klein's not the only one saying this. I mean, I hear it over and over. Essentially, like it seems to me like the response to the abysmal failures of the Hillary Clinton campaign in 2016. Joe Biden squeaked in 2020. People still don't realize how narrow it was and how it occurred in large part because Trump was killing his own voters. And then the disaster of the Biden presidency, which became hugely unpopular, which we on the left were warning it would be. We literally published an article the day I think Joe Biden was inaugurated, saying like Trump is going to be back in 4 years because this is going to be a disastrous presidency. And then the disaster of the Kamala Harris campaign, which we know exactly what happened there, which is she started off sounding progressive and her numbers went up. And then her crypto lobbyist brother-in-law or her Uber lobbyist brother-in-law and the crypto lobby got to her and she started waffling more. And then you saw her poll numbers tank as the election became closer and closer. And she started talking about the importance of fossil fuels, and she wouldn't say anything on Gaza other than it's very sad. So we all know what happened there, which is that leftists, if you go back and read the history of current affairs, we're warning at every turn, Hillary Clinton's a terrible candidate, Joe Biden's a terrible candidate, Kamala Harris is a terrible candidate, you need Bernie-style populism. And then, our theory is entirely vindicated here. The response to this is to rewrite history, is to just go back and go like, the Democrats did leftism and it failed.
You know why, though? You know what? Because these people it's not that they're Republicans or Democrats or they're Zionists. That's really what this really is. They're Zionists. So it's the tree and the roots, right? Like the Democrat Republican part of this is branches. But at the end of the day, they're grounded in Zionism as a political ideology and mindset that is racist by nature. And that ultimately does not see things through an honest lens. Like it can't even exist in that way. And so what I think we're actually seeing is the continued bubbling up of Zionism that is going to end up it's actually going to end up bringing all of them together because there isn't a definition, there isn't anything defining between their Zionism. Their Republicanism and Democratism was really, these are all just like masks that they're wearing in the process of engaging in an actual deeper effort that is going on. And I think for what it's worth, that analysis hasn't really been happening as I feel like particularly as a Black person who was watching more mainstream political discussion, there was never any whatsoever acknowledgement that Zionism played any role in any of this at any time.
And there still isn't.
There's still no.
And there's almost no acknowledgement of the role that Zionism and Zohran's pro-Palestinian advocacy played in his race. And toward the end, there's this very ironic thing, speaking of flipping the words, that was happening where once Cuomo realized how he was being damaged by his association with Israel and Netanyahu, being Netanyahu's lawyer and the like, that he started saying, well, why is this race a referendum on Israel? I'm running for mayor of New York, which of course is what Zohran was saying in the beginning when Cuomo's team tried to make this a referendum on Israel because he thought it was going to inure to his benefit. So I think you're right, Amanda, and I want you to get in here too, Nathan, that there is the whole abundance effort is to try to act as though you agree with some aspects of what is popular about Zohran, whether it's the aesthetic or at least the narrow economic populism, without touching any of the core values of the establishment, which include a commitment to Israel and our imperialism as a country.
Yes.
And also, relatedly, our commitment to the corporate elite.
Yep.
I say relatedly because the weapons industry, which is the backbone of the American economy, and our interventionist efforts, of course, in lockstep, as is the fossil fuel industry versus the long-term environmental goals and public health goals that are associated with environmental harms, which is why when I try to explain to people what abundance is, when it boiled down, one of the things in the book, which I in fact did read, is that they tee up this idea that housing is being curtailed by needless regulation. And they do this thing where they mostly don't get specific about which regulations they're talking about.
Right.
Because when they do, it gives the whole game away. And in this one moment, they're talking about the need for housing in California. And they say, look, if you insist that we build housing that isn't going to make the kids that live in the housing sick, we're going to have less housing. So you got to let us build housing that doesn't have the air filters that are going to keep kids from having asthma.
Yeah. Well, and one of Matt Iglesias' big things is we should be allowed to build apartments without windows.
Those cells.
And look, even if you believe that there was a kind of a pragmatic argument where it's better to live in a house without windows than under a bridge, they're really presuming, they're asking you to presume that the barrier to having housing supply is building windows and having ventilation and not building, on a highway, as opposed to venture capital firms buying up empty houses and leaving them empty, or these private public partnerships that take public money to build luxury housing and then create a few low-income units that you have to enter through a back door so that the rich people don't see the low-income people entering the housing, and having destroyed a bunch of dense public housing and able to build that in the first place. All of those kinds of things. Sorry, Nathan, I see you wanted to get in here.
Yeah. Or just the fact that wealth is highly concentrated, just the fact that some people are poor while other people are very, very, very rich.
That's my brother. Shout out to my brother in the comment section. I just pulled it up because it was a good comment. LOL.
Hey, bro.
I mean, it is certainly true that there is a real effort to tell the story of 2024 without talking about Palestine, which you can't really do. The Biden administration was responsible for a genocide, and that's the basic fact. There's in 1984, he tries to cling to the basic truth that 2 + 2 = 4. Well, the truth of trying to remember what happened over the last few years is to cling to the basic fact that the U.S. government was perpetrating a genocide. Right, that is the basic core, most important fact of the last couple of years, and you've got to build all of your analysis around that.
Yes,
and so for Ezra Klein to write a column he talks about the Democrats, they moved left on this issue, they moved left on this issue, but not discuss, this massive overarching issue, which was the worst human rights crisis of our time. And this was the thing that absolutely disgusted a huge part of the Democratic base. I believe there are pretty convincing analyses showing that Kamala Harris lost directly because of this, in that if she had done what taken the very, very modest steps that Palestine activists were asking her to take, but which was things like, even symbolic things like letting a Palestinian speak at the DNC, and
just optics.
just optic things that she wouldn't even do. She wouldn't let go of her commitment to Israel, and she lost the election accordingly. I mean, that's the story of what happened in 2024. And so really all of this, abundance versus socialism stuff is a total distraction from the actual core story of 2024, which is that the Biden administration didn't support, but essentially perpetrated a genocide.
They made lies up to make it happen. So that is definitely perpetrating.
They perpetrated a genocide. It's their genocide. I'm right. My next book is called American Genocide, because it's about how this is not really an Israeli. I mean, it is an Israeli crime, but it's an American crime.
So this is a question I have for you guys, because my ramen is about to arrive.
Okay,
I'm gonna go.
Please.
So I have noticed in the past 3 days an abundance of damn it, that wasn't even on purpose.
Sorry,
An abundance of Sudan presence on my timeline. So at first I was like, oh wow, like I'm glad to see this.
Yeah.
And then I remembered though where I'm at. I'm in the metaverse. So whenever the algorithm does a big switch, there's something behind that. And I also saw Palestinian influencers and voices and journalists doing videos specifically about Sudan, and folks that I rarely see speaking English in their videos. And so I was curious what you guys think could be attributing to that, because then I also saw that there's the info wars that begun, where you're seeing, American diplomats and people speaking. Who was the person? I think it was a UN person who are all of a sudden like, Sudan is crazy. What's going on in Sudan? You're like, but y'all never cared about Sudan. So like, what's actually happening? Curious if you guys have any theories.
You can go first if you want to, Nathan. I have.
Well, I mean, I don't actually know what's what forces are operating in the background. I mean, I will say that for the entire duration of the Gaza genocide, there have been constant efforts at every level of the United States government, and it's bipartisan and it's corporate, to do everything possible to get people to pay attention to something else. And so even if it's genuine events on the ground that are real, it's not that it's not to negate or deny the reality of the suffering of people in Sudan. It creates an opportunity that is seized upon by many actors who have been looking for some way to get us to talk about anything other than the destruction of Gaza. So it's not surprising that there are many people who see that genocide as essentially an opportunity to distract us. And you're right, Amanda. Of course, they don't care about people of Sudan, obviously, but they do want something. I mean, and this is consistent. It's not just Sudan. Obviously, this is the consistent tactic of the apologists of U.S. empire, which is to find the crimes of other actors and point to them and get us to pay attention to Putin's repression, or a repression in Iran, or China, or Venezuela, or North Korea. Find anything other than the crimes that we are perpetrating and tell us, look at that, not at this.
That's exactly what I was going to say. Oftentimes, if you look at the accounts that are saying, why aren't you posting about Sudan? And then you Google, like you search Sudan in their own posts, they've never mentioned it before that. Never. And it's tough, because I do frankly think that there is an asymmetry between how much attention is to different conflicts that is related to, yes, anti-Black racism. And I think that is true. And the Black person in me is very vulnerable, frankly, to that particular kind of attack. I did put out feelers to try to get some good guests to come on to talk about Sudan, because I do think it's important to cover. But I also think that the people who are pointing fingers in that direction are doing so in bad faith. Yeah. And in particular, because there are stories right now, I was trying to pull one up while you guys were talking, but I couldn't find one in time, about how social media posts about Gaza are being deleted. And also how the timeline is very much de-emphasizing anything having to do with Gaza.
Well, all the journalists are gone as well, right? So that was a big, not all, but a lot. I mean, an insane amount. And, you know, a lot of the reason why we weren't getting any coverage about Sudan was because there weren't people on the ground that had the same capability as getting the story out, in by nature of, you know, internet blackouts and technology, et cetera, et cetera. So there's like a whole poetry movement that is aligned with resistance in Sudan that actually does very much work with the digital space. And there's a film about it called Sudan, Remember Me Sudan, that speaks to this. However, when I see what's happening right now, it's a catch-22, because on one hand, I'm like, I'm very glad that this is being, you know, that this is being amplified. I also know there will be no genuine efforts done to stop it. I don't by
100%.
any means expect any efforts to be done. I mean, you have the head of the RSF like casually sitting in the Waldorf Astoria in Paris, and he gets run up on with cameras, with phones, by Sudanese who are like, what the heck are y'all doing here? Like, this is not cool. And they're like, hey, because they're impervious. For whatever reason, they are in a Western country feeling impervious. And so at the same time, I find myself also not knowing what's going on in Palestine for the first time in 2.5 years. I don't know in the same way that I did.
Not to mention, I think post ceasefire, the corporate media went into full court press of, why aren't you grateful that a ceasefire has happened? And Dana Bash had Debra Messing on to bring the conversation back full circle to her. Yeah, to ask her, to interview her, and very seriously, like, well, like, you've been a staunch advocate for Israel throughout, like, and people have been calling for a ceasefire. And your mentions, like, have you seen people celebrating the ceasefire? And she's like, no, that's not. It's how hypocritical of them not to be celebrating a ceasefire. And meanwhile, obviously, we all know that the killing hasn't stopped. There was that horrible image of what looked like a little mini nuclear bomb going off, with the radius spreading out in Gaza just yesterday, I believe. Dozens killed on a daily basis. I'm going to have later in the week an interview with a journalist who recorded that really galling footage of being chased, an American journalist being chased by settlers in the West Bank, narrowly escaping into his car before the settlers move on and bash the older Palestinian woman over the head with an implement. That's what we know is ongoing during the so-called ceasefire, but that's not what the mainstream news is. Very coordinated response to the ceasefire news was. So it feels to me like they said, we've got a ceasefire on paper. We're going to stop covering it. We're going to use that as a justification to suppress, or like a cover for suppressing the news on social media. Because it seems like, well, maybe things just died down.
Yeah.
And then we'll divert the audience, and we're going to continue to do what we're doing. And it's diabolical. And it also just makes me say, when we see these things, like, we can't just go along with it. You know, like, we have to like call it, amplify it, all the things. And I don't know if damn, I lost my train of thought. There was something I was going to tell you before I go. Talk amongst yourselves.
Happily, I just want to shout out this Sliwa tweet where he is Batman style calling on his supporters.
God, there is something so likable about him, despite the fact that he's a fraudster and a fascist thug.
100%, but my God, the branding. Also, you should have seen me on Halloween. I was such a menace. People were trying to introduce themselves to me like in actuality, and I was like, I'm Curtis Sliwa. Who's got a cat? Like, I was shot 5 times. This is why I was shot. Does anyone know where the napkins are? I'll tell you about the napkins. I needed a lot of napkins when I was shot 5 times when I got into a New York City taxi cab.
You really embraced the role there all night. You must.
Very method of you. I appreciate that as a thespian.
I was truly insufferable.
Sounds great.
Yes. Also, I'll go ahead and read some of these off as well while Amanda's thinking. I'm very bad at doing this. To BJG, Amanda, and Nathan, many hearts. Thank you, Kimmy. Jimbo, wow, didn't have Bree being a Sliwa voter on my 2025 bingo card. I'm not a Sliwa voter, to be clear. I'm just an appreciator of the aesthetic.
Oh, I got it. I remember.
Yes. Go for it.
Corinne.
Oh. Corinne Jean-Pierre. I saw her do a really. Oh, she was on
Amen.
Lathan. She was on with Lathan.
Van
Lathan Jr.
So now they're all doing. So how I'm wondering how Van Lathan's podcast got into like the Dem circuit.
I think what's happening is that they're all looking for Black voters. I think first of all, two things are happening. They to your point, they want big male energy. Okay. They also want
loud. They all loud like, male.
Loud male. Sorry. They feel. Although obviously Lindsay is on that show as well, but I don't mean to invisibilize her.
No, but it's.
But they also want Black votes. They know especially all the white candidates know that they can't get Bernied, with news articles that say that they can't win the Black vote, like Buttigieg can't win the Black vote. And then they also think racistly that they're going to have easy interviews on Black shows. And Van said this after the disastrous Gavin Newsom article interview, that he thought that Gavin thought that it was going to be a cakewalk.
He thought they were going to talk about like, what's your favorite car and stuff like that.
Yeah. What's your favorite 90s hip hop album?
You ever date a Black girl? Did you ever date a Black girl?
Okay. Is this the new Paul Thomas Anderson movie? Have you ever dated a Black girl? Wait, have you seen it yet? Have you seen One Battle Again and Again? Because that's literally a line from the movie. Do you like Black girls with Tiana?
My mom saw it and was like, "Do not go waste your money and see that. Don't go see that."
Mom is right. I had Van on to talk about it, and that was the issue. Like they fetishize Black women and act like we're supposed to be very impressed that some people in the movie want to screw Black girls, and they literally. That's a line of dialogue. Do you like Black girls? Yeah, I like Black girls. I can't get enough of them. I like Black girls. And it's so cringe. It is the only time in my entire life I've genuinely considered getting up and walking out of a movie.
Oh,
really? You've never gotten up and walked out?
No, because I like bad stuff. I like to hate on stuff. I like to talk about stuff that I hate. Like I'm a professional hater. This was like cringe. Like this was like I can't enjoy this. And but for the fact that I was there on a date, I don't know that I would have like sat in my seat.
You went to go see that movie on a date?
I didn't pick it. Yes, it was.
Was it a white man?
No, it was not a white man.
Because that would have been hilarious to go see that film with a white man.
No.
And you're there like, really?
No,
really?
It was with a Black man, and thankfully he agreed with me because I was like, I'm about to have to leave this and figure out a way to talk about this movie in a way that doesn't insult him. Because this was his choice, and I can't be such a negative Nancy.
See, things like that. Look at all that math you had to do.
I was
the
like,
movie was trash.
And then he was like, "Okay, what did you think of it?" And I was like, "How about you go first?" And thankfully, we were on the same page, but it was stressful for a second there.
There's my ramen. You guys, this has been a delight.
It really has been. Thank you so much for being so generous with your time, Amanda. Reminder that this is where you can see Amanda on the book tour, and the book comes out on November 8th.
Yes, and you can watch the live stream and get your tickets at amandaseals.com to support. And remember, the Zios are out here trying to shut me up and shut us down. So let's show up with numbers. Even if you don't buy a book, just come through and be like, from the river to the sea. It was great meeting you, Nathan.
Nice.
And you all stay lifted. Don't give up on astrology. There's a place for all of us. All right. So I will see you all in the world. Bye, comrades.
Bye, comrades. Keep the faith. All right, Nathan.
Hey, Ray.
I want to give you an opportunity to really dig into what you think is going on here. I will say to the audience, I apologize. I feel like I should be talking more about Zohran. I've been checking to see if there's any.
Zohran. We're really talking about Curtis Sliwa and his cats for the last hour.
Well, let me ask you about this.
You're parade brain. That's what you are.
It's true. It's true. I can't be helped. I'm a little bit like, don't you a little bit want to be a part of whatever this movement is? Like just for the vibes?
No, I do. It's kind of crazy because the Guardian Angels is fake, right? Like there aren't actually more than like 40 of them in the whole city. Isn't it like a fake movement?
I don't really know much about the guardian angels. I was
You
like
lived in
learning.
New York. Did you ever see one?
Never once.
Never once.
This is how important swag is,
not
though. Because
real.
look at this. No, let me try to find some of the good Sliwa shot. The debate clips where he really shows his character to the world in a way that made him sort of a lovable character. There was a clip about the parades, and there was a clip about getting shot.
All parades have a right to exist.
And I would choose either of them. Parades have, that's another thing people kept asking me at this party. What is your stance on parades? Which I was very happy to pontificate about. Okay, here we go. Here we go. Oh wait, this isn't the one, but this is a good one.
If there was a ranked choice election, how would you vote, Mr. Mamdani?
If there was a ranked choice election,
In this, you'd have to rank these.
myself number 1 and Curtis number 2.
Mr. Sliwa.
Oh, please don't be glazing me here, Zohran. Are you kidding?
Mr. Sliwa, do you want to have an
I
answer?
support ranked choice voting, but I'd only vote for myself.
Mr.
Don't be glazing me, Zohran. That's my guy. Like, come on.
He's a magnificent character.
Look at this. Look at this.
I know. There's something very likable. I mean, the problem is that he's kind of a fascist thug. Like,
Hey,
I mean,
let's not get into the details.
If he actually had a chance of winning, he would be quite frightening in a Trumpian way, right? I mean, it's only because he stands no chance of getting near power that we can kind of enjoy these aspects of him.
Yeah, of course. But Nathan, that being said, wait, where's the parades one? Why isn't internet
I
doing
feel
its
like Trump
job?
is kind of fun in this same way, and Trump only becomes less fun because he's got power.
Trump is the single most hilarious politician that the world has ever seen.
Right.
And as the light fades from our collective eyes as humanity, we are going to be laughing. As the nuclear bomb descends on our town or whatever ends up happening, I'm confident that we will go out laughing.
Yeah.
That man
No.
is as funny as he is evil. Did you see this one, by the way? Speaking of Trump and Zohran and being low-key hilarious.
With state and local elections coming up Tuesday, we asked the president about the highly anticipated mayoral race that includes former New York Governor Andrew Cuomo and Zohran Mamdani.
Zohran Mamdani, 34-year-old Democratic socialist. He's the front
communist, not socialist, communist. He's far worse than a socialist.
Some people have compared him to a left-wing version of you, charismatic, breaking the old rules. What do you think about that?
Well, I think I'm a much better looking person than him, right?
With state and local elections.
Like, he's so vain. He's so absurd.
Yeah.
And for his priorities in that were to make sure that we understood that he was a communist, not a socialist, because Trump identifies accurately that socialism is popular now. But
well,
also
that's
to
an interesting point, isn't it? Isn't it interesting that he had to say like he's not a socialist? Like, because he realized that like the old tactic of calling people socialists doesn't work. So now you got to go like, oh, they're not a socialist, they're a communist, because that still has some sting to it.
100%. So Nathan, as I continue to look for absurd clips to amuse myself, I really did bring you here to get into this bigger issue of what's next for the left. So on one hand, we're fighting this battle over the centrists who are trying to maintain their dominance.
Yeah.
On the other hand, there was this question that Amanda raised, how do we keep Zohran Mamdani accountable in a world where everyone is very excited to win? And is winning important no matter what, or is there a cost which we shouldn't be willing to pay? And at what point do we start to cross that line?
Yeah, I mean, so right now, as I was just checking again. I think we still don't know the election results, but in New York, and I was just in New York for a week, and one of the interesting things is people are less worried about whether Zohran will win than what's going to happen if he does win, because if he does win, it's probably the most important single victory for an American democratic socialist in the history of the United States of America. I mean, I know New York had a mayor before who was a member of the DSA, but I mean, it's a huge, it's like it is a takeover of the most important city in the country by the DSA. And then the question is, what happens then? Does he just, when all of these forces come to bear against him that are pressuring him to moderate, don't do public grocery stores, don't do anything about the police. We can't actually have free buses. Maybe you could reduce the fare by 50%. What's he going to do? And what he does is going to determine in many ways, the future of the American left. Because if he's in the highest profile American leftist now in a position of power, it's not like being in Congress where you have this ready-made excuse, which is, I'm only one of 435 representatives, I can't do anything, right? He's a chief executive. There's going to be expectations, and if he sells out, that he's going to totally demoralize the left. But I mean, I think we all recognize that you're going to have to make certain compromises because you're not all powerful. So the question is, as you say, what is the line? So, for example, in this campaign, he very prominently backed down on his previous criticisms of the NYPD. He used to say they were racist. He not only no longer says they're racist, he literally went on Fox News to apologize directly to the NYPD for having called them racist. Well, the NYPD are still racist. So is it going to be a lot more of that? Are those just a few things that he said, thinking that he had to do them in the election? I mean, there's a huge amount of uncertainty now that's going to depend on who it turns out this guy actually is.
Let's also talk about this clip in which he was asked by the Hellgate podcast, criticizing from the left, about keeping NYPD Commissioner Jessica Tisch on board.
Billionaires. Let's talk about Jessica Tisch. That was the big news this week. I mean, lots of people who support your candidacy care about criminal justice reform and reforming the NYPD. And for the past year, she has stood athwart that in many different ways. She wants to keep the gang database. She's pushing a crackdown on low-level offenses. She's ordering the NYPD to issue criminal summonses to deliveristas. I could go on.
She was the face of the effort to roll back discovery reform and bail reform, and now she wants to do mess with raise the age.
How do you square all of that with your choice to make her your next police commissioner?
I think there is quite a bit that applies in this answer, not only to Commissioner Tisch, but also to anyone working underneath the Adams administration. And that is the question of what is the directive of the mayor. And I have made this decision as a decision to further my very public agenda of delivering safety and justice. And so that means this is a decision to build on what she has done in entering Eric Adams's NYPD, where he stacked the upper echelons with corruption and incompetence. She started to root that out and also reduce crime, and also to create the Department of Community Safety, and also to disband the Strategic Response Group, and also to actually follow through on the exact agenda that we've been running on. And I'm someone who cares deeply about criminal legal reform. In Albany, have been on the front lines of many of the fights to retain much of the progress that was made. And I am going to be a mayor who will act in the same manner.
So she's going to reverse her position on all those things, or she's going to follow your lead in City Hall if she's your police commissioner?
I think everyone will follow my lead. I'll be the mayor.
Well, we'll see, won't we? I mean, I don't. I mean, it's hard. It's hard to assess. I mean, he's laying out a theory there, which essentially says, "Look, trust me. I believe in these. I'm still progressive on criminal punishment reform. I still believe in all of the things that I don't now personally. I don't know that much about policing in New York City specifically, so I don't really know about her positions on. He was laying out some good things. He said she'd done. I don't really know very much about that. But the theory here is, well, the police commissioner reports to the mayor. I'm going to direct her to keep the good things she's done and reverse the bad things. And then we'll see if he does that. If he, he says, I mean, I kind of like him saying, like, I'm the mayor, people are going to do what I say.
Do you? Or because it strikes me as deeply naive and as a dodge, to be honest. Can you imagine a world in which Eric Adams keeps some, Chesa Boudin style leftists on board his team? Let me ask you,
it's hard to imagine that actually happening.
And let me ask you this other way. With Zohran being up as he has been in the polls and having so conclusively won the primary, why? What's the rationale for keeping Jessica Tisch on board, who additionally is a Zionist who is very supportive of the police crackdown on pro-Palestinian students, the very students who got Zohran elected, knocking on doors, 50,000 strong, et cetera, et cetera?
Yeah, I mean, on the surface, if you're going to do it, if you are going to be a dictator of a mayor and bring these people in line, then that could work. But the way we've seen it before is, Obama keeping like Bush's CIA director on, or, it doesn't. In general, when you bring people who totally disagree with your agenda on, what actually happens is they undermine you at every stage, and they make it so that it's impossible to carry out the things that you believe in. So while if he does sit down on day one and say, look, everyone who is in this administration has to carry out my agenda or you can leave, if he does that and follows through on that, then in theory that's going to produce good reforms. But as you say, it's kind of hard to imagine it actually happening.
If I invited sorry to be maximalist with this analogy, but if I invited a robe-wearing Klans member to a dinner party, and other people in the room objected, and I said, look, I understand that this is a robes-wearing Klan member, but I'm not going to kick him out until he actually says something racist. That would feel a little silly. It would feel almost like I was looking for space to justify the presence of this person whose ideology is very clear, whose commitments are very clear, saying, well, they're in my house, so they're going to follow my rules. The question is, why do I want them there? Even if they do follow my rules in a superficial sort of way and not try to hang any of my dinner guests or call them the N-word. Right?
Yeah. I mean, well, that's why I say, he's citing a series of supposedly positive things that she did there. And I don't really know about those, enough about those things to know if there is like an affirmative case for this person's presence.
There isn't an affirmative case for it. But look here, let me go back to your earlier point that you made, Nathan, about what it means for the left, given how much attention there is on Zohran, if his agenda is ultimately thwarted, because, to the bigger point here, he's the mayor of a city. The purse strings are held in Albany. Kathy Hochul was late to endorse. My theory is that she ultimately did endorse the Democratic nominee in those words because she is being challenged by her former lieutenant governor, Anthony Delgado, who I interviewed, and you can hear him on Bad Faith podcast. Anthony Delgado is positioning himself as more of a Zohran-friendly candidate. And she, if not for the fact that she was being primaried, I don't know that we would have gotten what we got out of her. Notably, when she attended Zohran's rally, what was it, last week or the week before, she praised the crowd for turning out in big numbers and praised Zohran for galvanizing the youth without talking about any of his substantive policies, and has previously said that she did not endorse his policy to tax the rich and would not be allowing funding for some of his other efforts. Here's her basically saying some of that in a recent interview from a day or two ago.
We know that Mamdani does want to tax the rich more, bring it up about 2%. He can't do that on his own. You've previously said that you wouldn't be raising taxes. Have you reconsidered that stance?
No, I would say one energetic rally does not get me to change my positions, I assure you. But I do hear people's voices. I process what everybody says, but I'm also have to balance governing this state and making sure that those people who are actually the reason we have a generous, supportive budget that helps lift people up, it's their revenues that we tax. 1.5% of New Yorkers cover about a third of our budget. That's enormous. I'm concerned about outmigration of people who are the ones who are supporting our budget. I cannot make up for that with middle class tax increases. I cannot do that to the middle class and the struggling New Yorkers. So this is the balance. I mean, this is my position.
All right. So if Zohran is being set up to fail, is there more? Here's how I would put this. This is how I put it in a very sort of, I think, productive but intense debate that I had in the episode that is coming out on Thursday with Osita Nuevu. If we all kind of understand that this is largely symbolic because he's going to be thwarted at every turn by the NYPD, by his own democratically elected governor and all those kinds of things, is the value of winning what we should be focused on versus the value of him using his platform to change the shift to Overton window on major left priorities, including Gaza, the way he has on Gaza? And if the messaging is at least as important as what he can accomplish in office, given the limits that are going to be put on him in office, how do we feel about his retrenchment on issues like criminal justice and ultimately some retrenchment on the issue of Palestine as well?
What do you mean, the Intifada thing?
The Intifada thing, the change in language. I won't call it full-blown backtracking, but the change in language about arresting Netanyahu and the caucusing with self-described liberal Zionists that also got some pushback.
It's not actually clear. I mean, I wouldn't take it as given that he is definitely going to be thwarted at every turn, right? Because I mean, she said that there in that clip, I'm not going to change my position because of one rally. Well, no, that's right, but you're going to change your position when you sense a political threat. So if you're able to build, I mean, that's as you mentioned, that's why she endorsed him in the first place. After not endorsing him, she endorsed him. Well, a lot of these politicians are completely unprincipled and only looking out for their own interests. So if the calculus of their interests, right? So if Zohran has an overwhelming victory, there's a massive movement, there's clearly a groundswell of demand for free childcare in New York City, with a tax increase. All of a sudden, I do think there's a danger of accepting the narrative that, the Democrats in Albany are never going to let this happen. And they want you to believe that. Right? They say this in the Atlantic. Zohran can't do anything because Kathy Hochul's never going to let it happen. Well, she would like us to believe that. They would like us to believe that. But if there's massive popular support and there's a credible political threat against them, all of a sudden they're going to start pretending it was their idea all along. And they're all going to start shifting towards the Zohran agenda. So if he can get a few big things through, because he builds a popular movement in favor of these things, and if they're really good and positive and make a huge difference for the people of New York, I think that's actually going to be important. Because it's going to show that you can actually accomplish one or two things that really change people's lives. It's going to show that you can successfully put pressure on the party establishment. And if he just governs as a really, really good mayor who manages to change a few important things, I think that's a positive for the left.
I believe that people can be moved and he could achieve something like free busing. I believe he can be allowed to open 5 grocery stores, publicly owned grocery stores. I am very skeptical that he can be moved on anything that implicates the billionaire donor class in New York, the city with more billionaires than anywhere else in the world. And so what does it mean about socialism to have socialism branded as limited sort of free buses? I don't denigrate that policy in the least, of course, but that's sort of the totality of the achievement. If to achieve free buses, you have to be willing to sit down at the table with the business interest in New York and have yourself described in a New York Times article as not really being a socialist, more being a capitalist, being open to those, all the things that Estee Harridan wrote about in that piece. And what does it mean? You know, if ultimately you are collapsing the differences, you're collapsing the gulf between the people and capital instead of elucidating it and explaining to the people the way that he explained to the public and moved the public on the issue of Israel's right to exist as an apartheid state. At what point does he reify the capitalist system that he is now in charge of in New York City?
I mean, in many ways, the same questions would have faced us if Bernie Sanders had become president, and we've had a big push for. I mean, the equivalent of free buses might have been, Medicare for all, right? Where it's not a fully nationalized healthcare system. It's literally a very incremental thing. Which is
I have to disagree on that one. I think there's a big gulf between universal healthcare, the implications of universal healthcare for people's ability to continue to leave their jobs, mobilize for something more, the freedom that it comes to unions for not only have to fight around healthcare, but being free to fight around other kinds of issues, et cetera. Then
compare it to the childcare, the free childcare. I mean, I'm not saying that they're on the same line. I'm saying that the same questions would face us, right? If Bernie Sanders had become president, his signature policy is to expand an existing social program, Medicare, to cover everyone. And it's not a radical program. It doesn't really, it eliminates most of the private insurance industry, but it doesn't create a nationalized healthcare system on the lines of the UK National Health Service. I mean, as these things go, it's just bringing the United States in line with European social democracies, right? It makes a huge difference in working people's lives, but it is not that, as he emphasizes over and over, it's not that radical of a program. But you'd have the same kinds of things where you're like, is Bernie, really a capitalist who's just supporting this incremental reform? Ultimately, I think it would have been to the good to have a Bernie Sanders presidency if it brought about Medicare for all and nothing else. Just as I think it'd be good to have a Zohran mayoralty if it moves the conversation on Israel-Palestine in a really important way. If he gets free childcare for all of the people of New York, that's pretty positive.
And if it moves the conversation about billionaires taxing the rich, the fact that our immiseration is because of the aggregation of wealth of the 1%, if it moves that conversation to the right, if it moves that conversation to the right, because suddenly the conversation goes away because Zohran Mamdani is obliged to protect the interests of the billionaire class so that Kathy Hochul can keep taxing them, then what does that do?
Well, then that would be bad, right? So we're going to have to see where it goes. But I think that I tend to think that a Zohran victory is going to make it more politically possible to talk about tax increases on the rich. That it's going to increase the amount of pressure on people like Kathy Hochul to buckle on this because they're going to see that there's a groundswell of popular support for it. But we're going to see. We're really in uncharted territory here. So
I think we're in charted territory. I think we're in the territory where we've never seen a progressive candidate move more to the left after they've gotten elected. I think that's very charted territory not because of their spirit or their heart or anything like that, because of the nature of the pressures that they're under.
Yeah. Well,
and go ahead.
Sorry. I don't think it's going to move more to the left, but there's a question as to to what degree is he going to hold the line? And I don't know.
I'm trying to pull up in my big stack of papers if I can find. Yeah, here it is. The Estee article that I've already marked up, so I don't have to print it out again. I want to just revisit this. I know I talked about this in a recent episode, but I want to make sure that people understand that this isn't me coming from a place of negativity or wanting to find things wrong with Zohran. It's for me feeling like I have an obligation to talk about what's already in the public record. For weeks and months, people have been saying, well, wait till he wins and then we can hold him to account. I think that was silly for the reasons I talked about earlier with Amanda. But even if you adopt that approach, I keep checking. I don't see an official he's won thing yet.
No,
I do see that the Virginia candidate won, that Spanberger won and beat Errol Sears. That's less of a concern for us as leftists, but I guess it's good for Democrats. Let me read this excerpt and you tell me what you think. For months now, Mamdani has been meeting privately with former leaders in the city government, business executives, head of New York Arts and Cultural Institution, and skeptical local Democrats. The talks are pitched as get-to-know-you discussions with a new political star, but they also serve a dual purpose. According to people with knowledge of the conversations, in them, Mamdani has sought to present himself as a new type of leftist, a listener who understands his shortcomings and is willing to grow. He has acknowledged his lack of managerial experience and asked for advice. He has sought common ground. He has heard out his critics, including wealthy New Yorkers in business and finance, and some pro-Israel activists who are turned off by his lifelong advocacy for Palestinians or offended by his reluctance to immediately condemn the phrase globalize the Intifada. There have been two critical liaisons. Patrick Gaspard, a former Obama administration aide and director of the Democratic National Committee, and Sally Sussman, a longtime corporate executive and member of the finance committees for the presidential campaigns of Barack Obama, Hillary Clinton, and Joe Biden. Gaspard met Mamdani years ago. Sussman met him this summer, one of several C-suiters who privately reached out to him after his much talked about July meeting with the Partnership for New York City, a consortium of 350 members representing banks, law firms, and corporations. Sussman, who describes herself as a moderate pro-business Democrat, said that she was impressed by how Mamdani handled himself amid the hostile crowd. Weeks later, she met with him for an hour at her request and said she left that interaction taken by his curiosity. She recalled that he asked questions like, what do you know about game-changing leadership? And how should I form an administration? And made clear that there would be no litmus tests for staff roles in his cabinet. Sussman has since become a valuable ally, convening two intimate gatherings at Mamdani's campaign office, this time at his request, for business leaders and tech investors eager to meet him. Quote, there's something about him that makes people want to help him, she told me. Robert Wolf, another Partnership for New York City member and a major fundraiser for the Democratic Party, told me that he has begun texting with the candidate, becoming an informal pulse check for the city's finance and business community. Wolf also met with Mamdani for an hour at his campaign office this month, an in-person follow-up to an hour-long Zoom meeting in August. Quote, Zohran to me is more of a progressive capitalist, Wolf told me, adding that he was convinced by their private interactions that Mamdani understood the importance of the private sector thriving in New York. Quote, he's someone that wants to figure out how to use the government in an appropriate way on things that help equality and the underserved and help the underserved. The conversations have allowed Mamdani to reframe his previous positions, tweaking the us versus them language of his democratic socialist values to be a tad less punitive. He has made it clear that he wants to support renters, not punish landlords. He wants to support public education, not take a hammer to specialized schools with elite admissions. He supports Palestinian rights. He is not anti-Zionist. He made key concessions when it came to policing. Importantly, he made clear that he was open to compromise when it came to his proposed millionaire's tax. Call it Mamdani 2.0.
Is it the New York Times?
Yep.
Yeah. I did point out on Twitter this not anti-Zionist thing, and the response I got from some people was that was the New York Times' characterization,
yep.
But that it wasn't clear what they based that on, because I don't think that he has actually. A lot of Mamdani supporters were disputing that he had said anything that would legitimately be characterized as not anti-Zionist.
I think that's very fair. And when I covered this the first time on Bad Faith, I said exactly that a lot of this is characterization of a steed whose politics during 2020, I recall, as being very much not in the Bernie camp. So that's neither here nor there.
So he might not think he's anti-Zionist, but he's affirmed pretty consistently he doesn't believe that Israel should exist as a Jewish state, which, the phrase he uses is he doesn't believe that any state should have a hierarchy of ethnicity, which essentially translates to Israel should not be able to exist as a Jewish state in particular, which is pretty clearly anti-Zionist. I mean, it's kind of definitionally anti-Zionist. Anyway, so whether he's backed off on that, I don't think we have evidence that he has. I think mainly his kind of phrasing is working successfully to convince people he's not hostile to Israel, even though the implications of what he's saying are quite hostile to Israel's basic structure. Again, like, is he playing these people? I don't know. Is he? Is he saying, like, I'll sit down and hear you out, and then I'm gonna go do what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna, if it appeases them or throws them off guard for me to have a meeting where I just nod and smile, then it's worth doing. And picking his battles. I don't know. Again, these things are concerning. We're going to have to see what he actually does. Presuming he wins, and currently he's winning. Yes.
So apparently he reportedly is at 51%. He has won. I'm looking for an actual confirmation of the victory. I see people in the chat saying he's won. Here's a screen grab from CNN with Zohran at 51.5%, Cuomo at 39.7%, Sliwa whoop, 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 at 8%.
There's your man.
And percent. The way we all forgot he is currently the mayor of New York.
Eric Adams, that guy? Who's that?
Mark.
Oh, yeah, there we go. 51.
It is wild. See, when someone in the chat is saying NBC called it for Zohran already. Shout out to you, Tim. A characterization glitching. Can you guys hear me? Nathan?
I'm losing you a little bit.
My bad. I think sometimes when I share my screen, my computer can't handle it. So I'll try to keep that to a minute.
I do see MSNBC having projected winner Zohran Mamdani. So
okay.
So we're gonna find out what he does.
We're gonna find out. So taking everything you said about the New York Times piece characterizing him, we don't know what he actually thinks. I will leave you with this quote. The quote is, this is from Mamdani. Being right in and of itself is meaningless, Mamdani told me when I asked about his approach to these meetings. Quote, we have to win and we have to deliver.
Yeah.
Take from that what you will. Being right in and of itself is meaningless. I would like to hear some follow-up questions about what one should be willing to give up, to concede either in real life or rhetorically behind the scenes in order to win. And the point that Shama has been making throughout this race is that you should make sure that you are not doing the work of collapsing the differences between your project and the Democratic establishment's project, and that you are clarifying what's motivating the Democrats and being honest about the limits of their reforms because of who they are and what their goals are. Oh, speak of the devil. Speak of the devil. Nathan, I want to make sure that you know that this is not a hostage situation.
Oh, hey.
At any time, you've been very generous with your time. I called you in the last
meeting. Sure.
At any point.
Yeah, sure. I love Shama. Can I just make one more point from the centrism article? So in that idea that Mamdani voiced there, which is, okay, it's not enough to be right, you also have to win. I kind of agree with that, but as you pointed out, one of the arguments the New York Times was making in that centrism piece was the whole piece was framed around centrist politics can win. They are what it, and the whole thing was like that. Oh, if you abandon trans people, if you abandon, concern about racism, it can bump you up 1 or 2 points. And one of the core points that I did make in the article was, okay, but you lose you totally lose sight of what you're actually fighting for. If we proved that the civil rights movement was unpopular in 1963, that wouldn't prove that you should jettison civil rights in order to get elected, because that's what the whole fight is about. So it is true that if you start thinking in these terms of what do I have to do in order to win, and you stop thinking entirely in terms of ideology and the moral stakes of politics, you may win, and then you'll have, but at what cost? You'll have forgotten what the entire fight is about. So I do think I accept that caution about Mamdani, and it does concern me deeply. But anyway, that's all I'll say.
No, I really liked that part of your article as well, Nathan. And I want to extend a warm welcome to Shama Sawant, who has been, I would argue, one of the most, probably the most ideologically consistent touchstones for us as we have navigated this election, which is ultimately a candidate running as a Democrat in New York City, who is really kind of testing the limits of what the left can achieve within a Democratic Party context. Welcome back to Bad Faith.
Thanks so much for having me, and hi, Nathan.
Hi.
So I'm sure you caught some of what we were talking about. I was reading some quotes from the Esed Hirden piece about Zohran Mamdani that came out a couple of weeks ago, in which he is characterized as being willing to meet with the business community, soliciting their advice, describing himself as an anti-Zionist, although to be clear, that's how he's characterized in the article. It's not clear that that is what he actually said himself. And it, of course, reminded me, and I see other people in the chat and people in my audience over on Patreon, of some of the things that you warned about many months ago around the time he won the primary. So what's your takeaway from his victory tonight?
My main takeaway is that the working class demands that he ran on were incredibly popular, and he did run a Bernie style campaign in the sense that he focused relentlessly on those demands. I mean, admittedly, he did not actually talk about the $30 an hour minimum wage for New York, which I think is officially on his program, but he didn't really emphasize it for the most part. However, those are the demands that are really popular for the working class. And this campaign came at a moment when the working class is so angry. I mean, you've talked about this, Brianna, on your shows and also in your interview with Mark Lamont Hill, that the working class is so angry. I mean, look at this poll that came out recently, the New York ABC News Washington Post poll that shows that more than 60% of the American working class thinks Trump, Republicans, and Democrats all are out of touch. Both parties and Trump, they're all out of touch. But they think that the Democratic Party is more out of touch than even the Republicans or than even Trump. So it is at this moment of working class people feeling such betrayal by both parties that any candidate running on actual demands, on making buses free, making grocery stores much more accessible through public organizing, all of this is extremely popular. And I think the main point is something that you and Nathan were chatting about a few minutes ago, which is that the test is, what does he actually do with this position? Because in order to win any of those demands, it's obviously, I agree with you, Brianna, that winning a $30 an hour minimum wage is going to be far harder than maybe winning some bus routes free or something like that, although even that will be hard. So the point is that everything will need a fight back. And just one other thing I'll say before I stop is that at this moment, I mean, the Mamdani election, I mean, this has captured the imagination of tens of millions of American working people. It has become an international phenomenon. So anything that the working class can win through Mamdani's election will be seen as an enormous working class victory. So I think we should expect that the capitalist class, the ruling class, are going to be extremely determined not to let any of those demands win because of the symbolism, what it means that you could actually have this type of volunteer run, people powered campaign and actually win. And bottom line is, you can't win without a fight back. I mean, all the victories that we won in Seattle through my one elected revolutionary socialist office, that all came because I absolutely went there as a disruptor of business as usual. I was not having meetings with the billionaires.
Yeah, I mean, so I have this. Zohran just posted this victory post literally minutes ago. It's the subway pulling up with the doors opening at City Hall. Obviously, there's an enormous amount of excitement. There's 10,000 likes on this thing that just went up literally 3 minutes ago. And so it does feel like he has this very large popular front behind him. The fact that he was able to win with so many tens and thousands of volunteers, the fact that he, exponentially increased turnout, including among young voters, in a way that Bernie Sanders was ultimately not able to do, even though his sort of victory was premised on being able to do so. He does have a mandate of sorts, and there could be a world where we see something happen that we've never seen before, which is that someone wins, feels safe in having secured their victory, and then goes ham, goes balls to the wall, starts saying all the things that they maybe didn't feel safe to say in the primary. And maybe now we suddenly get this conversation where he's willing to say, F Jessica Tisch, actually. She's out. She's a cop. Cops are racist, actually. Also, I'm 100% going to arrest Netanyahu. Y'all can't do anything about it for the next 4 years, so you better sit tight because it's my house now. Sure, that could happen. It's never happened. It could happen. But I want to ask you what you make of the clip. I don't know if you were here for this, but there was a clip we played of Kathy Hochul saying that she did not support his taxing the billionaires agenda because she feared them fleeing the city, in combination with this quote from the New York Times piece in which the business interest said he was willing to sit down with them and that he was, quote, more of a progressive capitalist than a socialist. You've spoken to me in the past about, as you just mentioned, not willing to sit down with those business leaders, needing to make it clear to the public that those were the people that were thwarting the broad populist, economic populist goals that they were looking to achieve, and that these things were zero sum and mutually exclusive. So what do you have to say about the posture that Mamdani's been taking?
First of all, I think, the hypothetical, and I'll call it a hypothetical, that you posed about, somebody who has been making some concessions during his election, but then once they feel safe and secured, as you said, once they win the election, then they'll go balls to the wall. There's no example of that. So if we were going to be, if this was a statistics class, and I used to teach statistics in college, if this was a statistics class and any of my students said, that could happen, I would say, well, you're just not looking at the statistical evidence. And in this case, the evidence is actually zero. Like, there is no case that we know of where after taking office, the elected representative moved more to the left out of their own choice. You can see lots of things happening in historically through the pressures of mass movements and pressures, FDR passing the New Deal, that was done under pressure from mass movements, and specifically revolutionary movements, including the Teamster general strike in Minneapolis. So that type of phenomenon can push and will push the pro-capitalist politicians. However, this idea that somebody was not feeling safe enough during the election, but then they moved left once they elected, that's never happened. And I'll tell you why. It's not only that I'm relying on statistical evidence to have this position, but scientifically it does not make sense. Why? Because when you're running, if you're running on working class demands, you come under intense pressure, even when you're running. And I'm speaking from personal experience from my first election campaign for city council in 2013 and so on. We had tremendous, we had all these Democratic Party operatives, and now people who have since been elected to office actually coming to me and saying, well, don't call yourself socialist. Do you have to start every speech by saying you're a socialist? Do you always have to talk about the $15 minimum wage? Can you tone it down? Can you, list as a member of the Democratic Party? Why are you running as an independent? On and on and on. And I didn't bend on any single one of those, because what happens is that if you bend on any of those things, what you do is you're sending a signal to the ruling class, to the Democratic Party, that you are malleable by them. And that means only one thing. It means that they sense blood in the water and they go for the kill. They want more and more and more, because there's no finite limit to how much appeasing you can do of the ruling class. It's not like you can say, oh, I'll meet with the billionaires and I will retain the billionaire police commissioner, but I am going to fight against racism in NYPD. I am going to push for working class needs, because in order to push for and win anything, you are going to need to fight against the very people you are trying to appease. So it's like trying to square a circle, and it doesn't matter when you try to square the circle will always be a circle, and if you're trying to square it, it's not going to work. So it doesn't matter when. And it's furthermore, once you get elected, the pressures on you compound exponentially. So I think that the most benign thing I can say about this is that somebody would be naive to think that is going to work. If they think that they can get elected and then they can do it. I mean, if I don't know I'm not a mind reader. I'm not saying that he's thinking these things. I'm saying that if indeed that is the contention anybody is making, then the best thing I have to say about that is that is naive. But honestly, I don't even think that's what's happening. I think what's happening is the same old story. There's nothing new here, in the sense that we have seen so many Democratic Socialists of America elected representatives, or endorsed by the Democratic Socialists of America elected representatives. There are hundreds of them throughout the nation. There are 4 on the New York City Council. And what have we seen them do? Virtually nothing. I mean, nothing. Maybe they did marginal things, but nothing, absolutely nothing. Unfortunately for the working class, absolutely nothing comparable to what we did in Seattle. And the reason is that if you are trying to sort of make some peace with the ruling class and yet do something for the working class, you end up actually not serving the working class at all, and you end up generally appeasing the ruling class more and more and more, because for the simple reason that you can't serve both working people and the ruling class. You have to choose a side, because the interests of the working class and the greed and the profits of the ruling class are diametrically opposed. We didn't make the system. The system is what it is, and it is our job to understand that.
It's been so difficult for me as I've been trying to explain this point, especially knowing that, I can be easily characterized as a hater, for lack of a better word. I heard you, mention the interview I did recently with Mark Lamont Hill. I appreciated the opportunity to make the pitch there in some way. But I've been thinking about, how to say that concisely. Like, how do you make people understand that it's not about, this isn't an assessment of Mamdani or any other leftists' will or desire or personal integrity, belief in self, capacity as a politician, natural skill, anything like that. But that it's akin to thinking that you're going to convince your jailer to let you free when their entire livelihood depends on them keeping that job. When, their mortgage needs to be paid by the only job they can get, which is to be your jailer. I mean, it's, politics is like a dam. And, there's water on one side and it's dry and safe on the other side. And there's this argument that like we can convince, the dam wants to break and we can convince it somehow to only like crack and then we're all going to be safe. Like this is like a zero-sum situation when we're talking about the economic institutions that have designed the system the way that it has. That capitalism really is the problem here. I don't know. It feels like I get when like kind of normies don't really think in those terms. It is a little bizarre to me and frustrating when leftists will respond to me. And this is, I have an episode coming out tomorrow where people will hear this argument like hashed out in full, or on Thursday rather, we'll hear it hashed out in full. But the like, well, we'll wait and see. I guess we'll see what happens. It feels like a little bit of I don't want to say a cope, but like, no, I don't have to wait and see, because I thought we understood the structural realities of what we're dealing with. I don't have to wait and see if paper will catch fire if I put it in a flame.
Yes, exactly. I mean, the starting point is exactly what you said, Brianna, that capitalism is a zero-sum game. It's not our imagination. It is so. The fact is that capitalism is a zero-sum game. And so if you have political representatives who are trying to make peace with or trying to kind of serve the ruling class, then they are going to betray the working class. And it doesn't have to be, and it shouldn't be a question of intentions. I mean, ultimately it does become a question of intentions and integrity, but doesn't have to be your starting point. That doesn't need to be the debate. The debate mainly needs to be about strategy. Does that strategy of trying to make peace with the ruling class, does that work for the working class? Absolutely not. What it does work for is the careers of those political representatives, for the careers of the labor bureaucrats, careers of all these middle layer, which I call gatekeepers. Yeah, it makes for very convenient, well-paid, lucrative careers. It makes for mainly, it's not even just about money, by the way, for this middle layer, for the gatekeeper layer. It's about the fact that if you defy the ruling class, even marginal, even slightly, they will come at you so hard that there's no way to not fight them. And so these people, the elected leaders, the DSA leaders, progressive Democrats like AOC and Bernie Sanders, all of them, they have made their own personal calculations that they are not going to take on that fight. Why? Because it's fucking hard. It is hard. Not that I'm not saying that to justify them or give them cover. My point is that it is hard, but that is what needs to be done. So as far as Mamdani is concerned, I mean, he has real potential to do something similar to what we did through my city council office in Seattle, if only he would actually do it. I mean, now the news reports are saying that over 100,000 ordinary people, working and young people, volunteered for him. That is an army. That's the army that can be harnessed to win any of the demands that he has brought forward. The question is he going to harness that army? And I'll tell you something. Once you start harnessing that army, once you start putting that together to actually win something for the working class, that will upset the Democratic leadership that he is trying to woo and he's trying to be on good terms with. It will absolutely alienate him from the Democratic leadership. There are no two ways about it. They're not going to accept any middle ground, because there isn't any middle ground. Either you win for the working class or you don't. That's how it is. And so if you actually do what I did, which was use my office to build movements to win what is now the nation's highest minimum wage, the Amazon tax on wealthy corporations to fund affordable housing to the tune of hundreds of millions of dollars every year. If you win the unprecedented renters' rights we won, it will make you enemy number one as far as the ruling class and the Democratic Party is concerned. I mean, you will have a target on your back. That is how it is. But the problem is, the issue is that there is no other way to achieve what we have achieved. I mean, there is no other way to actually fight for and win for the working class other than having leaders who actually understand that that is what it takes, and that there is no peaceful route to winning reforms, let alone ending capitalism and ushering in socialism. So in other words, the question to Mamdani is the classic labor question. Which side are you on? And if you're on the side of the working class, then why on earth would you be convening meetings with the billionaires? And also, as soon as you win, are you going to are you going to actually put that army into action? I mean, I have already pledged. I mean, I'm running for Congress against genocidal billionaire-backed Democrat Adam Smith. I have already publicly pledged that if I'm elected, which we have a real shot to get elected, if I'm elected, that I will turn my congressional inauguration in Washington, D.C. into a mass rally of 10,000 people, and I will immediately start building the mass campaigns to win an end to all U.S. military aid to Israel and free healthcare for all funded by taxing the rich. We don't see this type of language from the Mamdanis of the world. And the simple reason is that, setting their intentions aside and assuming even the best of that, what they do understand is that if you make those kinds of promises, you will have to live up to them. But most importantly, it will immediately put you at odds with the Democratic Party leadership. But you know what? The other side of the story, which we have to put in focus here, is that there's tens of millions of people out there who are angry. They are angry and they want a fight back. And yes, there are lots of hopes pinned on Mamdani. There is no question about that. but it's also true that people want results. People understand that we've had many rounds of this merry-go-round. We've done this so many times. And I just wanted to also say one quick thing. Brianna, you've posed this as a question. You did this in the Al Jazeera interview and also tonight, which is that what is more important, winning, as you said, winning the election, or winning for the working class and also setting the correct example for the working class? I think that's the correct way of posing the question, because if you make it about winning at any cost, meaning winning at the cost of making concessions that actually put you at odds with what's needed for the working class, then it's not worth it. However, we do want to win. I won 4 elections. One of them was a recall fight against me by Trump-related Republicans, and the Democratic Party did absolutely nothing to help me fight that recall. We still defeated it. Why? Because the working class was on my side. And the reason the working class was on my side is because I have never sold out. So it is possible for us to win for the working class, including elections. And the reason I'm running for Congress is the same reason I ran for city council, is not for my own career. And this is the crucial difference. I'm not a careerist. So for me, I am dead serious about winning elections. But why? So that I can use that elevated platform to better, organize stronger movements of the working class to win offensive victory. So if it's done on that basis, we can win. But at the same time, we're not going to win every fight. And so the bottom line in every fight, as you're in, and this is relating to the way you posed the question, the bottom line is you don't send out a wrong message. So even if it means you don't win that time, you have to do the correct thing. And that is what I was saying to Bernie Sanders also. And obviously that was 2014. Now he has thoroughly capitulated to the Democratic establishment. He has, Bernie Sanders has sold out. AOC has sold out. And so, we need the correct examples. And then that part of that is running independent. That is why, a lot of people even now will say, why don't you run as a Democrat? I mean, seriously, people hate the Democratic Party. Why would I run as a Democrat now of all times? And furthermore, it is about sending the correct educational lessons to the working class, which is that we need a new party for the working class. We're not going to run as Democrats. And the way we won 15, for example, the 15 struggle here in Seattle was we launched 15 Now using my office. The Democrats hated it. There was not a single Democrat ready to vote yes at that time. We built neighborhood action groups. We held mass organizing conferences that were attended by thousands of people. We held mass rallies, mass protest marches. And then, most importantly, in some ways, we launched a ballot initiative campaign, which collected tens of thousands of signatures, which became a credible threat to the Democratic Party, that if they didn't vote yes on our $15 measure on the city council, we were going to go directly to the voters and it could win. And it had a real shot at winning. That is how we won. And that is also how we won the Amazon tax. We actually launched a massive movement on the ground. We held action conferences, and we brought in a ballot initiative campaign that collected 30,000 signatures in 3 months. And we were able to win the Amazon tax, even though the so-called progressive Democrats were also against us.
I want to just briefly go to Fox News calling the victory for Zohran, but I want to come back, Shama, and ask you a question about what it is like to run outside of the two-party system for Congress.
To you. The Fox News decision desk can now project New York City has elected Democrat Assemblyman Zohran Mamdani to be its next mayor. Now, he will become the first Muslim mayor of the city and its youngest in more than a century. Not really a surprise. I don't know why people were waking up in the last, 2.5 weeks. I think they should have woke up after the primary where he handily defeated Andrew Cuomo. To you.
Okay, I can't help but be very amused by the collective meltdown over this. That being said, I recently interviewed an independent candidate running against Richie Torres for, I think it's New York's 15th district in the Bronx. I saw Andre Easton tweet earlier after Zohran's win was announced saying the Bronx is ready for socialism. He's obviously fired up. He also shared some of your concerns and criticisms of what the Zohran moment should mean versus what it could mean, versus what it likely would mean when he was on the show just last week. But one topic I didn't get into with him was this sort of structural realities of running as an independent. Some people in my audience had this as a follow-up question, which is basically, I like him, he sounds good, but can he really have a chance running against Richie Torres if he's not running as a Democrat? How would you answer that question since you're in a similar position?
I think that first of all, it's not a logistical or a technocratic question, running as a Democrat or not. It is a political question. And given how rotten the Democratic Party has exposed itself to be, I mean, we're talking about a party for whose candidate 19 million people who had voted for Biden in 2020 refused to vote at all in the election last year because they were infuriated about the genocide in Gaza and the cost of living crisis. How does it do any service to your credibility if you're running to be a working class fighter to be part of the Democratic Party? So I completely disagree with any candidates who say, purportedly are running for the working class, but then say, oh, like just for logistical reasons, I want to run as a Democrat. No, that doesn't work, because what message are you sending to the working class about the main message that you have to send is you need to break from both the Democratic and Republican parties. They're both parties of billionaires, and meet an independent working class party of our own. And the starting point of that, it's not going to fall from the sky. This new party is not going to fall from the sky. The way the left parties were built in Europe, for example, were through militant labor movements and militant organizing by the working class, especially with a revolutionary character, in the wake of the Russian Revolution. And so that is the kind of movement building we need to do. And as part of that movement building, we need to run strong, really strong, independent working class campaigns in election years. And so running as a Democrat goes in the exact opposite direction. So it is very much a non-starter as far as I'm concerned. I mean, you have to run as an independent. I have always run as an independent. I'm running as an independent now. The key is to have really strong working class demands and to build a ground campaign that energizes thousands upon thousands of people. That's how we have won.
Okay, but I agree with you, obviously, but people are asking logistically, and let's say that they're not asking because they don't want people to run as independents, but they want to fix the barriers that independents face when they run outside of the two-party system. So can you speak to what barriers, what limits, what obstacles you encounter not running within the duopoly? Are you going to be are there ballot access issues? Are you going to be allowed to participate in debates? Do you have to contend with being sort of invisibilized by the media? Those are the things that people want to know as they're considering whether to put time, energy, and effort into these campaigns. What is the nature of the battle we're up against, and what kind of commitment is it going to take for me to make sure an independent candidate actually has a shot?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, look, we have to. I reject running as a Democrat for any reason, and especially if you're saying, oh well, I don't believe in the Democratic Party, but I'm just doing it logistically. I think that is a completely wrong starting point. But that doesn't mean that we shouldn't be strategic. We do have to be strategic. If we want to win for the working class, then we have to be strategic. And part of being strategic means that you have to pick the right kind of races for yourself. You have to see which race actually works. So my contention is not that, oh, there are no barriers and you can run anywhere at any time. That's not my contention. In fact, my contention is, if anything, the opposite, in the sense that I don't think it makes sense if we're actually trying to build a powerful left, which I think is absolutely urgently necessary, which I'm sure you'll agree with me. I don't think the strategy is to run lots and lots of candidates, independent or otherwise. That is not the way it works. I think what we need is a few very strong candidates and very strong campaigns, and in strategic races where we have a real ability to build strong campaigns. I'm not saying that the necessity is to
No,
predict
I
that
understand.
win.
I really, this is a good faith question. People want to know. Let me just ask one question at a time. Are you going to be on the ballot? Is it going to be difficult for someone like Andre Easton to be on the ballot?
I'll answer that question, but as far as first your question about me, in Washington State, it is what's called a jungle primary. So I will be in the same primary as every other candidate. The Republican candidates will be in the same primary. And the top two, whichever party affiliation they have, will move on to the general election. I'm running as an independent socialist, and I believe on the ballot it will show up as independent. So that's what I mean by strategic, so I'm not claiming that every race is up for grabs. In fact, it's the exact opposite. It's very hard. As far as barriers are concerned, trust me, the barriers are extremely hard to overcome. But my disagreement is not that the barriers aren't hard. I'm compassionate to the people who are saying that. My point is that overcoming the barriers cannot start with running as a Democrat. That's what I'm saying. That yes, the barriers are steep.
Right.
But overcoming the Democrats, first of all, you have to not run as a Democrat. And then you have to build a working class campaign in order to get through. And just one other thing I was going to say about about the Richie Torres race, where it's not a jungle primary. And, that's why people are making this conclusion that they should run in the Democratic primary. Well, but look, what is their claim here? I mean, are they saying that they are going to be able to defeat Richie Torres in the Democratic primary without an almighty
absolutely.
powerful
I want to
campaign?
let me clarify even further. I'm asking you to dispel people's skepticism that it is wrong to run outside of the Democratic Party. I didn't ask the candidate this, and maybe it's not fair to ask you because you're not as familiar with what's going on in New York, but I'm asking this question from the posture of I would like you to reassure people by talking about the value of, or the ability to overcome certain obstacles despite running as an independent. I'm not asking this as a gotcha, like as to why you should run. Quite the opposite.
No.
I know that people want to hear it's okay and good that he's running as an independent because X, Y, and Z. And that realistically speaking, you have to get, let's say, maybe an independent candidate in New York has to get this number of signatures or something, but it can be done. And that's what I'm trying to clarify, that it can be done without just erasing the obstacles that are in front of us.
Yeah, well, first of all, just if you look at the mass consciousness at this moment, and especially right now in cities like New York, I mean, people want independent parties. I mean, I just saw polling from North Carolina. I mean, this is not the election results, but other polls in North Carolina, of all places, where they're saying that in voter registrations, Republicans have fallen flat. I mean, registering as Republican Party voters is fallen flat. Registering as Democratic Party voters is actually going down. And what is going up? The only thing that's going up is registering as an independent voter. So for God's sake, if at this moment we don't recognize that running as an independent is feather in your cap, then I don't know when we will see that. So first of all, that is the starting point. I mean, if you want reassurance that you should run as an independent, yes, please, at this moment, absolutely, you need to. But in addition, it's not enough just to run as an independent on paper. You've got to build that campaign that shows you as relentlessly campaigning against whichever douchebag Democrat you're running against. I mean, in Washington State, in the 9th Congressional District, we are being very clear. I mean, am I trying to make overtures to the Democratic Party and being only sort of marginally critical about my opponent, Adam Smith? No, absolutely not. We are making it crystal clear. Adam Smith is a genocidal, billionaire-backed Democrat who actually should be on trial for war crimes, but the very least, the price he needs to pay is to be thrown out of office. This is how we are speaking. We are campaigning openly for free healthcare for all, funded by taxing the rich, to end all U.S. military aid to Israel, and to end the brutal occupation. So you bring up these demands and people are like, oh my God, this is the kind of campaign I want to see. So obviously the rules in New York State elections are different, but the point is that the political approach that we are putting forward, that is a universal thing. It's not something specific to Washington State.
Shama, as we wrap here, I was going to maybe try to hang around for some kind of Zohran speech, but I don't see anything percolating. And y'all know that I have to close my rings, and I only got another hour and a half before midnight to do so. So I want to close by asking you this. If you were to be giving advice to Zohran, or we're in Zohran's position where he does have this really laudable, I do want to credit what he's done to distinguish himself from other progressives like the rest of the squad, AOC, et cetera, which is that he didn't win just because it was a low turn. I don't mean to diminish AOC either, but it wasn't just that it was a low turnout election and where he caught people off guard. It was that he got in the primary 50,000 in the balloon to, you said, Shama, 100,000 volunteers. When I visited New York in January and stayed at Katie Halver's mom's place, I noted that there were Zohran flyers in the door in January. This is before anyone knew who he was. He was polling in single digits. He was really doing the work on the ground. He continued to facilitate and to grow and attend to those volunteers. And he really does have a very galvanized army behind him. We'll wait and see what he does with it. But what would you say to him if you were in this position where you had 100,000 New Yorkers behind you? You're about to give this speech tonight. You're going to be the mayor sitting in Gracie Mansion shortly. What do you want to see from him, or what would you do if you were similarly situated?
I mean, it's very, very straightforward and simple. If he asked for my advice, I would say use your army of the working class in New York to fight for the demands you have brought forward. It's as simple as that. Use your army to fight to win the demands you have brought forward. Obviously, underneath that, it lies, that's where the rubber hits the road, because if you use that army to actually fight to win those demands, then that is when the hard questions start coming up, because that is when it pits you against the Kathy Hochul's and the Chuck Schumers and the Hakeem Jeffries and the Tishes and all the other billionaires and Wall Street, whichever, centimillionaires and everything. That's when you come up against all those forces. So exactly what, to do what we have done. I mean, very first question, most immediate question is, can you turn your inauguration into a mass rally and announce the next steps for the fight for whichever one of those demands? Maybe start with free buses, whichever one you think is strategically the best starting point. Announce the crucial next steps, rally people, tell people, announce a date where people should come in the tens of thousands to City Hall and rally for that particular demand. Capture as much momentum as you can from the election victory as you possibly can, and then turn it to the battle against Wall Street.
Yeah, amen to that. I see people are really enjoying your voice, Shama. Stu says Shama Sawant was right. Here we have Stu again saying, this I think is in response to the clip we played of Zohran talking about the police commissioner earlier. 100% a dodge. I hate it when we treat politicians like they're naive. This man is not naive. He's highly intelligent and a very crafty politician. Just look at what he's accomplished. Turnout. Yeah. Jean here says, love both Brie and Nathan. This is the highest level of broadcast tonight. I prefer the philosophical discussion to the others, and you guys are dressed just fine. I appreciate all of these comments. But Shama, I have to say that your voice is always in the back of my mind. And I think it's because you have a kind of moral clarity that I find to be absent in most spaces. And I know that Amanda really, I appreciate her as well, even when we disagree on things from time to time. I know that she's being guided by a really well-tuned moral compass. And she can be persuaded on things, but not about whose lives matter and what she's willing to compromise on in terms of basic human rights and dignity. And is not drawn primarily. I think that there's a real danger in prioritizing winning above all else. And there's a kind of meme that's going around about the left that says, like, the left doesn't care about winning. I think ContraPoints famously tweeted this out before she got blowback and left Twitter, that the left doesn't care about winning. They just want to be right on the internet. And I think that's wrong. and a very dangerous kind of centrist response to saying that we shouldn't win at any cost. And I really appreciate Nathan also bringing up this in his article against centrism, where he points out that if you tried to poll test equality, anti-slavery, the civil rights movement, those would have also failed in the polls. And at a certain point, you have to learn to win without losing all there is worth fighting for. So I appreciate deeply your moral clarity and your willingness to join us here tonight. Before you go, do you want to tell the audience where they can find out more about you and your campaign?
Yes. People can go to Kshama Sawant, my first name, last name, no spaces, .org to find out about the campaign. And if you like what you heard, then please join Workers Strike Back also. You can go to workersstrikeback.org. That's our national organization. And if I might just say, Bree, your question about, is it the left doesn't know how to win? Obviously, that's not true. The left has won many times. That is the only reason progress has been made under capitalism. And just to reframe your question, what is important, what we should be prioritizing is winning at all costs for the working class and for a better society. That should be done at all costs, meaning at all costs should we avoid selling out. It's very simple.
Thank you, Shama. Thanks for everyone for tuning in. I'm going to let you go, Shama. I'm going to read the last of these questions that I didn't get to, and then I'm going to let you guys all go while I hop on the treadmill. So thank you again. You have to come back and talk to us again soon, but have a great night.
Great. You too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Okay, and the last ones here were just maybe just this one. Love this. Bree, Nathan, and Amanda, my favorite super group. Please do a live in-person podcast. I would love to do more in-person podcasts. I'm working on that in the coming year. I think I might have read this one from Kimmy already. This one from Brandi, my brother. I cannot forget. Thanks, Brandon. I think that is everybody. So I'll leave you with this. I did just recently do a interview with Mark Lamont Hill over on his show on Al Jazeera, which I strongly recommend you go and listen to. It's only about 25 minutes long. I think it really summarizes a lot of these points. If you have people in your life that you're trying to kind of get on board with this left agenda and why the Democratic Party has limits, I would encourage you to share that with them. I also secretly would love a hosting gig with AJ, and I want the numbers in that video to go up so they can tell how much their audience really likes me. So you can help me out there. Don't forget to like and subscribe to this video and subscribe to this channel. You know, the algorithm is playing games with us. Hit the bell if you haven't already done so. I was also interviewed for 2 Al Jazeera documentaries. One about Zohran is already out, and one is coming out following election night. They, had to see if he was going to win or not before they let that one out. So keep your eyes peeled for that. On Thursday, I have an extended debate with Osita Nuevu of the New Republic. He's a great writer. He's wrote a new book that engages directly with the arguments in the Ezra Klein article that we talked about tonight about democracy and the path forward for the left. But we have, obviously some difference of opinion about the value of electoral politics and how much confidence we should have in someone within the Democratic Party and the Democratic Party itself to evolve in ways that actually achieve progress. He does a really good job in the book walking through the kind of democratic reforms that Democrats could take on if they cared really about democracy. And I make the point that these were all at Biden's disposal as he had a trifecta. He chose not to deploy them. And what does that mean about the existence of a legitimate resistance party? And should we continue to feed into the idea that we have one? So I encourage you all to also subscribe to the channel so you don't miss that episode dropping. And as I said before, I'm very proud of this astrology episode. If you did not click on it because you thought this was not for you, I promise you that you will be pleasantly surprised. As so many people over on Patreon said, I don't care about this stuff, yada, yada, it's flaky, da, 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 da. But they were like, this was one of the best episodes of the year. They also said that about my episode with Amanda Seals. So you should go and listen to that if you haven't done so already. All right, that's my pitch. Thanks to all of you who have been subscribing over at Patreon. If you enjoy your free Thursday episodes, you can get an extra episode over on Mondays at patreon.com/badfaithpodcast. I will leave you with that. Good night. Congratulations to Zohran Mamdani. I hope that all the skepticism that has been articulated over the last 2.5 episodes is ill-placed, that I'm wrong about everything, and that you live up to the fullest potential of what you've worked so hard for and achieved with an incredible amount of grace and poise and raw political talent. I look forward to seeing what you do next. Take care, everybody. And as always, keep the faith.